Yo, welcome everyone to the FATED podcast, episode 117, right before the Affliction launch. I hope you've had a wonderful rest of your 323 season. The hype for me personally had died down a little bit, so there was a long season of inactivity, and for a moment I wasn't quite sure whether I'd make it to be back here, so I want to quickly, mention all the people who support and keep subbing to the stream. Helps tremendously. I'm here now if you want to be one of the supporters and be on the end screen of every video and these podcasts, then feel free to become a part of the supporting team. And now, without further ado, without more sellout talk, let's get in our host, Balor Mage. Welcome. How have you been?
Fantastic. Ever since the announcement, I've just been nothing but hype. I hate having to get up and go to work or do anything else that isn't sitting in front of my computer. I am ready to go.
It sounds good.
And by ready to go, I mean excited with absolutely no idea which one of the many options I will pick for League Start.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment. But we'll also get one of our guests in who already made it here. Welcome the famous voice of Yosis.
Salutations, Exile.
You did press the button again.
God, I love that.
Welcome. How have you been? Glad you made it on here in time. It's probably some audio setup hiccups there. Not directly there with the voice, but only with the voice for it.
Very professional. Yeah, I had to restart my audio engine. I left work early.
Extra fast.
Are you excited? I'll bet there's just builds running through your brain right now.
I mean, I'll be honest, it's a little bit tempered by the fact that I already had a build ready, and I'm still waiting on that gem to be revealed.
What gem are you waiting on?
I'm waiting on Lightning Warp. Because it kind of relied on the Helmet enchant pretty heavily.
Oh. It very much does if you want to use it as a real skill. Actually, even if you want to use it as a movement skill.
So,
there are a few
I've been checking the reveals for whether or not Lightning Warp is in them, and I have seen a few, but I've mostly tried to unspoil myself so I can look at these for the first time and then give my reactions on this.
There's a few missing. I don't know what other ones I care about, though. I feel like everything I care about's covered already. I was hoping for like a good SRS, but there isn't one, so that's fine.
Did you see the post about the big ones and then the replica wand that lets you have 6 more? Is that any good, or is that just a meme?
I think so. But there's a more important part of that setup, which is that I think the only way to confirm this is going to be to do it in game. But I think that if you link it with summon phantasms, they inherit the 100% crit. There's absolutely no way for me to test that until we do it in game.
Yep.
But I think phantasms will inherit the 100% crit. So maybe I have to make some sort of low life thing with like 12 SRS minions and 20 phantasms that all have 100% crit. That could be really good. But depends on whether that mechanic works how I think it does or not. And
there have been plenty of things that it's like I can only test it in game. There's no way to know without like asking who coded it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about like making a tier list, and like these seem really good, these seem really bad, and these seem good, but we can't say shit about them before we have to actually test them in game. Like there's so many like obscure values like radii on spread and on various things where you just can't really judge it before you've seen it in game. But I mean, like it still feels cool to think about it. Yeah.
Like every minion gem that just says has this and this ability, and then just no information. No idea what the cooldown is, what the area is, what the damage coefficients are. Nothing. No information at all. Zero.
You love to see it.
There's going to be a lot of playing around when we get them in game. Minion players are used to not having any information, so that's fine. We'll work it out.
Well, should we backpedal a bit and start with the affliction mechanic itself? And
oh boy.
Well, there is these in-map encounters where we get into the wildwoods, and that's a completely different zone. The way I understand it, it's a little bit like back in Synthesis, where you're in the same zone but a different zone, right?
Yeah. Or Alpha Temples.
Exactly. So the area modifiers would still apply, but you have a different tile set, you get different monsters, you get different layouts and all that. And then you go through these wildwoods and you collect these wisps. And then when you bring them back, like when you exit the wildwoods, the wisps buff monsters around you and give you better loot and higher challenge. And through doing missions with the NPCs from Affliction, you actually get access to new ascendancies and powers that previously we could only dream of. So like every character gets on top of the regular ascendancy, the of your base class into one of the 3 specialization classes, you get another ascendancy tree, a little league ascendancy tree for free on top of it that you progress by interacting with the league mechanic. And what do you think about those in terms of power level? Is there anything that you want to mention?
Did anyone see Jung's tweet yesterday? So one of them might be actually completely the most broken thing that's ever existed. It is called Penance Mark. Penance Mark skill from the Warlord tree. Scales with Mark effect. Makes you summon some little weak mobs around the boss that are actually enemies.
Oh god.
That give you flash charges as well as everything else that killing a normal enemy would do. The other thing they do is exist not poisoned. For the ability to poison them all with, 12 or 1500% increased damage on the first poison that applies to every enemy, that would then also prolift back onto the boss. They stack the number of phantasms with mark effects, and it looks like good player 10 hours into the league could be Uber boss capped for damage over time.
Forbidden
like
Flesh Flame, focal point, easy game.
Yeah, I suspect that they're going to patch that between now and going live to do the same thing they did with the Wormflast, where the corpse gets destroyed and it can't prolift things, because it doesn't have that right now, or at least it's not written anywhere right now, which means it is just obscene levels of damage with like level 18 gems at like level 80 or so. As soon as you can fit in some clusters, it's like uber capped with a few clusters on.
I missed that announcement. Was that when was that? Yesterday?
I mean,
it's one of the skills from the Warlock trees. Yeah. But
it just had like Mark, and then you had to dig deeper into what it actually did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Penance Mark curses a single enemy, causing them to spawn multiple phantasms when hit. The phantasms will be allies of the marked enemy at the same monster level.
I need to quickly change something here. This doesn't work for Twitch because every time I alt tab to the other browser, they can't see you. Give me a second.
I'm curious why they felt the need to make them immune to curses. Did they think like the curse skills that, they didn't want you to detonate on the Phantasm. There's plenty of other stuff that you could abuse that isn't curses.
Yeah, and I feel like the only thing that stops is occultist pops. But Chieftain's still sitting there laughing, and like any other kind of like, and there's a lot of like chain things you can do with it, which would be like moderately cool. But its main use should just be like a really good way to keep generating charges during boss fights, because it summons those mobs once every second, which is a pretty decent trickle in of flasks.
Oh yeah, and you can also get they generate 50% increased flask charges. So it implies that they already provide a decent amount.
Which the only problem is that when you poison a non-poisoned enemy, you deal 300% increased damage, stacking and then prolifing onto the boss. That's a bit
There's already abusable stuff. Million. That's just insane.
Yeah, we're talking literally 50 million Uber boss DPS 10 hours into a league. Like, that's the whole game's broken. Like, everything is...
You can use... okay, so they're marked. You hit them, and then they're surrounded by enemies. What popped into my head is the first thing to hit all of the enemies and then poison them, and then that poison prolifts. Now, you have to be careful that you don't one-shot them, but didn't they change... There's a specific version of Hex Blast. Yeah, Hex Blast of Havoc. It has, like, no modifiers to poison damage, and it does, like, 1700 base chaos, and it has a blast radius of 3 meters if the enemy is cursed.
And it doesn't consume the curse.
Yes, so it's kind of insane.
Yeah,
I bet there are better options for doing what you described, but that's the first one that popped into my head. It makes it super easy to think about. Because it's like, oh, I'd rather, you can do a lot more damage with like a poison flame blast setup, but that's harder to think about.
I mean, realistically, it spawns once a second. So with this kind of level of abuse, it doesn't matter. Plug and play any poison build in. Make it Blade Vortex, it doesn't matter. Like poison caps, and this will cap you no matter what you're using. So like there could be more efficient, quote unquote, ways to like have a bigger poison or whatever. You don't need it because you'll just be poison capped. So that's all the damage you can do. That's it. I don't expect that one to make it in. I was really, really worried about it. I was like, I don't know how to fix that. And then somebody in chat was like, have you seen the worm flask? There's a line on the worm flask that says corpses are destroyed upon dying. And then there's like some explanation text that was added into the flask to stop any prolif from being able to happen. And I was like, oh, well, then they already have the ability to do that. So they just need to add that onto these mobs to stop that from happening. And then that's it. Simple. Easy solution. So I hope that's my only reason that I want that fixed before League launch is because I wasn't even planning on League starting a Pathfinder, but I don't see how 90% of every league isn't a Pathfinder if you don't fix that. I guess you could just wear Bino's not kitchen knife and not be a Pathfinder too. That's fine. But that's like a tier 0 now, so.
Someone in chat says somewhere they've quoted, I don't know where they've quoted it from, but it says that the phantasms don't drop loot or leave corpses, and not leaving corpses implies no prolif.
Ah.
I don't know where they're quoting that from. I don't see it on the skill description, but that would make sense.
That would be okay. If they don't leave, as long as they're not leaving corpses to be able to prolif, problem solved. Problem solved. Because otherwise we're looking at like 90% Pathfinders through all leagues. Like
in the FAQ they said, okay. And multiple people said that, not just the person that quoted it. So it's probably
all right.
true.
Cool. All right, sweet. That I don't think that was there when I went looking at this when I read it. I'm not the one that came up with the idea. It was a Jungro tweet that I saw, and then was like, "Oh my god, this is actually the most broken thing." And I checked everywhere, and there was no information. But that was a day and a half ago. So
there are still plenty of things that you can do to scale damage with this, but not nearly as ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
the easiest example is like, oh, you're shooting GMP fireballs at the enemy, and there's nothing for them to explode on. If they explode on the phantasms, you can get like triple damage.
Yeah, and that's still great. And yeah, Herald of Ash and Herald of Ice and just general.
If you can hilariously overkill them with Herald of Ash, very good.
Oh my god. max Flame Blast. Just pop all of them, but with Herald of Ash on, they're gonna have so little health it'll just all be overkill damage.
Oh, I finally found a way to show it on screen.
See that what you've hovered, it doesn't actually show. Oh yeah, hover the actual node, so like above it and to the right.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Penance Mark curses a single enemy, exactly, causing them to spawn multiple phantasms when hit. Yeah, it's been a while that these were revealed, and there's been so much gem information in the meantime that my head literally exploded, despite the fact that I haven't even looked at one of the gem reveals yet, like 1 out of the 4. I still need to go over those. But,
so when I saw this Ascendancy, I was very distracted by the left half of it, which implies insane life stacking, because I built a life stacking character somewhat recently, and it was very good.
How much better is it with 50% life preservation efficacy?
Considering I was running Aberrath's Hooves, not that much better. Although I was getting 750,000 damage per step of Aberrath's Hooves.
Oh my god. The other node in that tree that really interests me is the Crimson Power.
Yep,
gain maximum life instead of maximum energy.
That is free life.
That is an insane amount of... So there's that one chest that adds like 1,000 life if you don't have life on any other piece.
And then you can have like 500 life
that
on every other piece.
And then have full energy shield pieces everywhere else that just convert into life.
You can also just have 1,000 ES chest.
True.
Now, I was wondering, okay, so it probably doesn't work, but think of the Ivory Tower. You get more energy shield the more life you have, and then that would give you more... See, because it doesn't work because it has to be a line on the equipped armor, and that's not what Ivory Tower does. But if it did work, that would be a feedback loop.
Yeah, recursion problem. I can see a world where something breaks like that and you put it on at the same time and you just slowly watch your health go up into the millions and then the game crashes and then you can never log into the character again.
Yeah, that's
I can see right. That.
It's not impossible.
Yeah. It's just over the course of like 1 second, it just goes and then glitches out and then that's it.
The only thing that was wrong about that was the slowly. It would happen like in 2 frames.
Yeah, you're right. It would be very, very quick. It would just be like glitching numbers for just a split second and then done.
Yeah. And then your GPU is broken and your PC won't boot anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, these are crazy. I definitely want to play with them as well. This is going to bring blood magic back into the meta. I mean, blood magic has been like a super off meta choice for the longest time. There's like very, very few builds that actually wanted to go blood magic, and even with those, it was like very outlier cases, arguably, in which it was better to go blood magic than to not.
Yeah.
But you see this being like, with widespread use in the next league?
My initial impression is of the 3 ascendancies. I said the first one I saw, my initial impression was that it wasn't good unless tinctures were insane, but then someone pointed out it's just a very good leveling ascendancy, and then you can switch to a different one, or if you get a really good tincture. This second one I said, if you're doing life stacking, this is absolutely insane. It's a huge power boost to an already extremely powerful build. And then the third one I said is the obvious choice if you're not doing the life stacking. But I've since
100% agree.
I've since revised my opinion a little bit. Penance Mark is very abusable in certain circumstances, and someone pointed out the first one being a very good leveling ascendancy, and I assume there's at least one absolutely really good tincture.
Yeah,
so there's a way to do it. It's not useless.
The other two are niche to me. The Warlock and I think is it Warden? Yeah, Warlock and Warden are pretty niche. Like there's that mark that's abusable, and there's life stacking stuff, and those are both going to be good. And then there's Dark Effigy, which is like a button to press if you want to kill yourself, I guess. Like I don't understand why that's a skill, but whatever.
And then you have
tinctures, which are cool, very cool.
Forbidden Flesh Flame, but slightly diluted. But you can probably stack multiple of the same one to.
So they already said they will stack with the ascendancy you've got already and with each other. So you could get you can be a Pathfinder.
Yep, you can be a Pathfinder with 30% Magic Flask effect, and then 3 separate instances of 15% increased. So it's actually better.
You're already talking about the socketed one. I missed the switch.
Yeah, right? So there's 3 sockets Primalist. There. And then you can have 15% Magic Flask effect on each one. So that's 75% Magic Flask effect just from your ascendancies.
Yeah. Insane. Or you can just not be a Pathfinder and you can get 3 flasks per second and have your flask sustain with all 5 flasks without having to like give up a flask or 2.
I've been so shackled to Pathfinder just for that node. Yeah,
it feels like it's going to be the default choice as charms as soon as you've got useful charms.
Yeah, I was going to say that like at the beginning of the league, like 99% of people are not going to be Wildwood Primalist. Like they're either going to be the Warlock or the other guy. But the
90% of people are going to be Wardens at the beginning of the league.
Yep, you want to start with Warden.
You think
and
so?
Then get a bunch
always
of good stuff,
like even if you're a spellcaster.
You might stay Warden, even if because if you get a good tincture, you might stay Warden. But it's clearly the optimal route to start as a Warden regardless, and then swap to the Primalist once you have good charms.
Wait, do we already know what the level 20 Barkskin skill does?
It gives armor and evasion, but one at a time. It's like you start out with having armor, and then you take damage, and then it becomes evasion.
Unfortunately, it's not a more. It's just an increased armor, and the increase is 150%, so it's pretty good. But it's also 25% reservation. So would you rather have 150% increased armor or Arctic armor giving you 29% less physical damage taken?
You absolutely want Arctic armor.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's 25%. It's cool and interesting.
If you're an armor stacker and you're already using every other armor stack thing and you have some reservation.
But then it would be bad because you won't have any dodge at all. So you'll just get hit. And as soon as you get hit, it becomes evasion, but it doesn't even become evasion. So you can't even use what's its name to convert it to armor. Because it's actually just chance to avoid that you gain as you lose bark or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Chance to avoid is actually fairly powerful.
It is. But if you're stacking chance to avoid, you're not going to get hit enough to have the more chance for avoid from this. And if you're stacking armor, you're going to get hit too much to make use of the armor, and you're going to get a little bit of chance to avoid, which isn't really strong when you only have a little bit. So
yeah, this is kind of like Ward.
Yeah, it feels weird. It feels like it should be a 10% aura, like a banner, and then I feel like it would be good. But the most important part is obviously Oath of the Magi. Is that how that's said? Like that's every single character in like Act 2. As soon as you get access to it.
As soon as you get access to this ascendancy, this is what you're picking.
Yeah, every single person, no matter what the build, hits this during leveling, you take it. You take Oath of the Magi. That's the first node every single character wants, no matter what you're playing. It is 30% movement speed and 50% all res pretty easily. that is got to be the best way to level.
Yeah, that's crazy, actually.
So even if you're later completely banking on any of the other two ones, you absolutely go this and respec.
Yeah,
I would probably even be
like if you can actually get that in Act 2.
I'd probably even be starting maps with this still on, even if I was planning on using one of the others. Because like when you first get to your very first map in a league, plus 50 all res for just skipping the gem sockets in your helmet, that's an easy sell for me. Like day one, when I first get into my first map. Do you guys know how many maps I've done with resistances that look like 11, 114, 16?
I'm in the same boat.
I'm pretty good with gearing my resists, but dude, 30% movement speed is just like ridiculous on top of the boots, right? This is not like just whatever your boots have here, have 30 instead. No, this is like 30 on top of your already 25 or 30 boots. That's so nuts.
You know what I usually put in my helmet when I get to maps is Purity of Elements. So now I can just put it on a different piece and boom. Capped res.
The one thing that I do like, I actually think there'll be some neat uses of this in like actual end game as well, because the defenses from the equipped body armor doubled is pretty cool if you've got no socketed gems. Except how do you have no socketed gems in your chest? Well, abyss jewels don't count as gems, and there's a chest that gives you just 6 abyss sockets.
Oh baby.
And it's got pretty good defense on it. You could double that. That works. Do that and then leave the gems out of your boots, and suddenly you've got double defense, and you were already going to use the abyssal sockets in that kind of build anyway, and 30% move speed. It's great. Tinctures also look gross, like disgusting, if you're building a build that makes use of them. That's the problem. They're both Warlock and this are very niche. My default option is just charms. Get charms. Be primalist. Have charms.
Yeah. I don't know. I see the best charms you'll probably only have like a couple of days in, but you probably have access to decent tinctures before. Like maybe not the best tinctures, but like tinctures that are enough to make it worth being someone who uses a weapon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just got a feeling, because they've been trying to give something, like to throw a bone for melee with Crucible, right? And with the weapon trees that heavily favored weapon users, and in some cases with some power spikes. And it feels like tinctures is like this league's crutch for weapon user builds.
Yeah, sure. Or you could just make like a poison build that's a Pathfinder that uses a weapon, and then put on a tri-ele bow like you would for a Deadeye, and then just make all damage can poison. And now you've got a poison Pathfinder bow build that does 2.5 times what it ever did before.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to do
it. But you have to sacrifice flask slots, so
just one. And you get the micro distillery built for it anyway.
Fair enough, yeah, true. They already confirmed that that's how it works, right? Mm-hmm. You can use that without any drawback.
Yep, it'll say no flask in your fifth slot, and then you'll just put a tincture in your fifth slot anyway, because it's not a flask, and that'll be fine.
Yet more flask effect.
Yep.
I know it's really popular to put like granite and basalt and jade and stibnite as your flasks to get just a crazy amount of defenses, but I've been very successful using ruby, topaz, sapphire just to have absolutely insane EHP for elemental damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's super good. Like 40% less damage taken is really good.
Yep. I love that. And then just converting physical damage to elemental.
And then you don't need res on your gear because it comes with plus 50% all res, and then you have like 100% effect, so it's plus 100%.
Yeah, and you only need like 120 res total, so you end up with like, okay, so I need like an all res roll somewhere once.
On 1 joule. Boom.
Yeah,
Done.
like, oh, good, let's go. So much room for crit multi or dot multi, depending on what you're playing.
There you go. This is what you want. You want ruby, sapphire, topaz. That's real easy. They're the easiest flasks to keep up, other than, I don't remember, the all res one. And yep, bismuth, and then quicksilver, and that's your 4 flasks. And then you have a tincture and microdistillery belt.
Okay, and then just no life flasks, just have like disgustingly good recovery, either from leech or life gain on hit.
Pretty much every build I do assumes that the life flask is going to be inconvenient. Sometimes I still use it just because usually like corrupted blood or something. I'm like, oh, I'm standing in dot and there's no enemies nearby. I have nothing to recover with. And then I use my life flask. Most of the time, never use my life flask.
I don't tend to make most builds that I make don't have life flasks as part of their build. They start with them, but like as you get better and better gear and whatnot.
Oh yeah, certainly you level with them and then you outgrow the need for it.
Yeah. I usually start maps with 2 of them, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
and you quickly go down to 1, and then you go down to 0.
My builds, before they get all of the required items, are so bad that I have 2 life flask, a mana flask in the middle, and then some sort of utility flask that I really need on the 4th slot that like pads my resistances or something, and then the 5th slot is usually a quicksilver, just because that's mandatory.
Yep.
I usually already gave up on 1 life flask before maps. Depends on like whether I'm able to roll the mods that I want on my utility flasks, right? Like sometimes you gotta use just what you have against burning and against blood and all that, but like, yeah. Most of the times I'm able to get rid of the life flasks by the time I start using halloweds or divine flasks. But it also depends on like how many other means of recovery you have, right? Like I'm planning, I think, to start explosive trapper for bossing, and yeah, you just don't have a lot of recovery because you do get that 30 life from the mastery when an enemy triggers your trap, but outside of that, you really don't have that much on the way to mid-tier maps, right? And then later you get like somewhat decent recovery through region. But
I just thought of something that impossible to test without actually testing it in game. Does anyone know? I can't think of any reason for someone to have done this. If you name lock an enemy and frost blink and keep holding the button until it comes back off cooldown and it casts again, do you go back and forth?
I have no idea. Why would anyone ever have tried that?
Why would anyone have ever tried that? Maybe they have really, really good cooldown recovery rate.
I say, why would anyone ever have tried that? But like, I know some people that try some weird shit. So,
because my build idea is lightning warp, go fast, really high cast speed, right? So the idea being, if lightning warp is dead, there's a new frost blink that is no cooldown.
Yep.
And I don't really care about the chill mechanic on it. I just care about the ability to hold down frost blink on a name locked enemy while I have 10,000 cast speed and just flicker back and forth, hitting both areas and doing absolutely insane damage.
My first thought was something like a Winter Orb cast while channel Frostblink. And you just press and hold one button and just like blink through the map, Winter Orbing while stationary, so that you get the faster projectiles from it.
Good. And do not underestimate the damage of Frostblink. Okay, so I was planning to use Lightning Warp. Lightning Warp hits twice, right? So it's really good. And it has 90% damage effectiveness, so that's 180% damage effectiveness across 2 hits. And it does a decent amount of damage, and it gets cast speed on its quality. It's pretty good. This Frostblink has double that. It has double the damage effectiveness. It's a slower cast speed, but considering my build is using Energy Blade Battle Mage, it's really good to double that number.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Funnily, Balor, I had the same thought as you. I only thought Divine Ire because I had seen that Divine Ire had lost the less multiplier to the damage that it deals to nearby enemies while channeling. So I was thinking like channeling Divine Ire and cast while channeling Frostblink and just clear the map like that.
Winter Orb will also by default apply the chill.
Yeah, I would 100% recommend Winter Orb over Divine Ire for that purpose. Especially, I didn't read the gem on how much damage it would do while channeling, but I know regular Divine Ire channel is really bad.
Yeah, it's enough to clear white monsters, but it's not like a real meaningful.
The Frostblink would actually probably outpace it. At that point, just cast Frostblink really fast, like I'm gonna do. It has a better AoE than Lightning Warp by default too, so that might help with my clear.
So, just because we glossed over it a little bit too quick, I want to bring to everyone's attention that we essentially got Sentinel back, except only the gameplay part. This league is just a reskinned, slightly less controlled Sentinel as far as gameplay goes. Because so what's going to happen, right? We go downstairs, we clear wisps down there, collect wisps, whatever, come back out, we enter the normal map, and then it's going to empower and buff and give loot to random mobs throughout the zone. This is the play style or the excitement thing that I got out of robots, was giving a lot of power and then a lot of loot to the mobs in my map. That's what this is doing, except now it matches thematically, and we have less control over it because we used to be able to like mob up mobs in an area and say, these ones get empowered. And now it's just going to be the whole map get empowered. But essentially, it's just the gameplay side of that.
It's great that they didn't implement these weird robots, but at the same time, I have to slightly disagree because when I had hopes for Sentinel to come back, obviously I had hopes for Recombinators to return, and those are not included in any way, shape, or form.
It's only the gameplay side, not the crafting side.
All right, since we already started talking about the gems, do you guys have like some more standout gems that you'd like to talk about? I guess I could start by just picking out something if you guys want inspiration. I've seen a number, like I said, I haven't looked at all the batches of gems, but I've seen like a reoccurring theme of a guaranteed critical strike, right? Like my pick here would be the Glacial Hammer of Shattering, where instead of having a more multiplier to every third strike, the Glacial Hammer guarantees a critical strike on every third strike. And that opens up this weird semi-crit build option in which you'd want to scale a lot of crit multi, but you don't want chance because you get a guaranteed crit every third hit anyway, right? And so, in fact, do you not only not want chance, but you want to stack like malices to chance instead of bonuses, because they usually come coupled with big bonuses to either multi or something else that you do want, right? And so you go with the Marlene's amulet that reduces your crit chance and gives you a bunch of crit multi, and you can also pick Berserker Splitch charges, which reduce your critical strike chance in an attack build, right? And there's a bunch of options that you could do, and I'm super excited about that. But I think that wasn't the only one. There's also like a Lightning Tendrils version that guarantees crit. That one seems a little bit weaker because it's only one every 6 that guarantees a crit. But what do I know? I'm not a Lightning Tendrils expert. But yeah, I mean that Glacial Hammer thing, that seems really cool. I'm not gonna fall into the trap of league starting it, but I may have a desire to roll a second character relatively soon once I got a tincture that fits that.
Not gonna lie, since Lightning Tendrils came out, every time it appears in the patch notes, I just put a lol emoji. Like I'm reading through these gems. Lightning Tendrils of Eccentricity, lol emoji. Lightning Tendrils of Escalation, lol emoji.
I don't even think I paid enough attention to lightning tendrils to even. I think I remember looking at it and being like, I guess you could throw it on totems and maybe it wouldn't be complete trash, and then just like moving on.
Yep. I'm just like, it's only useful for cosplaying Senator Palpatine.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just looking at the eccentricity again, and unlike the glacial hammer, it didn't lose its like innate stronger every so many hits, but it still has a pretty sizable bonus to damage and area of effect of the stronger pulses.
If I remember correctly, the alt quality that did this had a fairly significant downside that made it so it was barely better. And this doesn't appear to have that downside.
All right. I have my list of gems that immediately interest me. I found them.
All right.
There's a few. There's a lightning trap that has a built-in 2 chains off terrain and pierces all target by default, which is like
wait.
1.5 support gems just built into the skill. That's one of the lightning trap ones. That one excites me because I like lightning trap. I forget what thing it came from. There's a fire trap that just got a giga juiced hit component and absolutely no degen, but it huge, like a massive hit and really good damage effectiveness that I think might be able to just replace explosive trap potentially. It's a massive hit. So that one looks cool. There's an exsanguinate that has 21 built-in chains. Which is an
that's crazy.
Insane number. It was a Armageddon brand.
Here, I got it.
It was an Armageddon brand that just expires after one single hit. So it's literally just not even a brand. Like you cast it, it hits once, and then it's gone. But the damage numbers were so insanely high that I'm like, that's like a big boy ignite.
Oh, yeah. I remember playing Armageddon brand Ignite in one of the past leagues, and it was...
Look at the damage effectiveness on that.
370.
370%, and it's got 2.5k just built into it. It can't be recalled, and it only goes off once. But you only need one Ignite. So...
See, but I always end up comparing skills like this to Fireball. Let's compare it to Fireball. Fireball also has 370% and has ever so slightly less base damage. That has 1676 to 2514. Fireball has 1640 to 2460. So it's ever so slightly
also
better
have
than
7.
Fireball.
Does Fireball also have 7.5% base crit?
It has 6. So this is better.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 6 would have been my guess. Plus, I mean, Armageddon brand, sure, like, you can get pretty good with Fireball, and you can just point blank into an enemy's face, but Armageddon brand is a little bit more convenient. You could just, like, hold your cursor at the edge of the screen and drop it there.
You can technically use it as a trap. You can put it where an enemy will be standing, and it'll attach to them.
Yep. I think that one could be very, very cool. The other one is Lightning Strike. There's a Lightning Strike that just has like 9 chains built into it, I think it was. Which is just going to end up being a map clearing beast. You add like 2 projectiles to it, and suddenly it just covers the whole screen in lightning arrows. Lightning strikes. Yeah. It's like Arc, but better. And then the less interesting, but probably most powerful on the list is the poison caustic arrow. That one's actually very,
I
very,
was
very
already sort of doing that, but this is better.
Yeah. That poison caustic arrow plus a normal tri-ellie bow with all damage can poison tincture is going to be a lot
it's
of
so
damage.
easy to make caustic arrow overlap multiple explosions. Like one arrow, one explosion.
9 to 11
one
is
pierce,
pretty easy.
One pierce, 2 explosions on a single target.
Yeah.
GMP with 1 pierce on a single target, that's 6 overlapping explosions. So you're already 6x damage.
Yep. Then you get 2 extra proj on the tree. You make it a ballista. You put a rain of splinters in. You got like 11 projectiles, and I think 9 of them overlap. And that's just on a single target. And if they pierce through something, then that's 18. Like, okay.
There was tech with return. I don't know if it still works super well, but like the splitting and returning, it would explode when it split and then explode when it came back and returned.
Oh, wow.
And then explode again at its final destination.
Yeah.
So caustic arrow, good.
Yeah, that's gonna be. It's probably the least interesting of all of the ones that interested me, because all the ones that interested me were doing like vastly different things, and realistically, caustic arrow poison was already a build, and it was already a functioning build that probably wasn't S tier, but was pretty reasonable, quite good already, and it had no chance to poison and no flat damage on it. So,
yep, I leveled my most recent build. I was like, caustic arrow because it has base damage on it, and then I'll try to scale poison as well. I had no damage on my tree. I had really bad gear. It was quite bad, but with the slightest amount of investment, it would have been so much better.
Yeah.
Damn, how long do you think they worked on this? I mean, that's pure speculation, but I feel like we've been asking for this forever, that like every skill, like especially the underused ones, get a little bit of attention, you know, like just some small tweaks, a little bit numerical changes here or there. And now not only have they done that, they've literally revisited every single skill in the game. But not only have they done that, but they've also done something that I think is like insanely smart, and that is splitting up the gems for the different use cases, because that way they can make them uniquely strong at the one thing that you can do with them without making them overpowered at the other thing that you can do with them.
So yeah, I mean, so far they've missed a few, but I'm more than happy with the amount that we currently have. Like, this is enough to tide me over.
There's another patch coming. Another
batch.
For
Hopefully
sure.
it'll have lightning warp in it. Otherwise, if there is no alt quality lightning warp, then it's just a straight nerf, and I'm very sad.
So I did some like quick math yesterday. And it was like there's like 110-ish gems right now or whatever. Right? Like roughly. In my opinion, about 20 of them can be thrown directly into the trash. They're worthless. About 30 to 40 more are giving us back things we already had from alt qualities, re-enabling things that we might have lost. And all the remainders of them are basically new skills, which gives us like 60-ish new skills this league. They just didn't have to do art for.
Yep.
That's insane.
This is quite good.
What?
Like, that is indeed. Yeah, if you put it like that, it's actually quite bonkers, really.
Yeah, that's insane. What? Plus whatever comes out later today, which I'm just assuming there's another batch. I assume there's one more batch. I assume batch 5. So yeah, I don't know. Insane. This is the first league in a while where I hope it's a 4-month league, because there's too much to do.
Well, I mean, the thing is with these gem changes, obviously they're here to stay. They're not just for this league, right? Like if there's builds that you still want to experiment with, that you still want to play around with, we're gonna have them next league as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to look forward to. Is there any more standout gems that you guys want to talk about? I'm gonna go through my list. Maybe I
I
get something.
purposefully didn't spoil myself so I can like mouse through these and be like, oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good.
Oh, I had a wonky idea with the Hex Blast of Havoc. Maybe do a Flicker Strike of Power cast on crit Hex Blast of Havoc.
Oh yeah, cast on crit. Because the Hex Blast of Havoc doesn't add its cast time to its trigger cooldown. Very, very good for trigger builds. Insanely good damage.
Also because it doesn't remove the curse, so you can just like trigger it infinitely and like always.
It's very
fulfill
convenient
the
because it's targeted and it has an AoE and it's instant. So it's like Astral Projector but better. That was my thought with where was the Lightning Conduit one that's just ignores everything that Lightning Conduit is supposed to be and just is a targeted Nova of damage. I was like, yeah, Astral Projector in the bin.
I don't know that one.
Lightning Conduit of the Heavens. Hits up to 16 enemies in a base radius of 4 meters, deals 749 to 2248 lightning damage. There is no...
Just hits targets in an area. Okay.
Yep. Cannot be supported by Spell Cascade. But other than that, like 0.7 seconds cast time, that's, not the worst. 270% added damage effectiveness, 6% crit. It's just a good spell.
Unleash seems fine.
Yep.
God, how many times is that with Unleash? Like, was it 4 casts?
Yeah, 4 casts, so 64 enemies.
64 enemies.
God, I wish they had combined the different batches of gems into like one big post so you could hover over it. Because right now it's so hard. Like you mentioned a gem, Lightning Tendrils, and I'm like, okay, which post is it in? And I have to go from post to post and hover over all the blue gems. If I don't know which one, I mean Lightning Tendrils, I know which ones looks how. But
I just have my own notepad document up where I took notes of the things I liked.
Oh yeah, I have that as well, but I don't have notes for everything, and sometimes I want to show something on screen.
Oh, I have newbie me is very happy about Double Strike of Momentum. I've told this story before, where my first build that made it past like Brutus was Claw, life on hit, attack really fast. That was the whole idea for the build. I didn't have any life nodes. I had 2k life. I couldn't make it past level 77, but I had 20 attacks per second. My life never dipped below full unless I instantly died. And so Double Strike of Momentum, the idea of having 140% more attack speed on Double Strike, which is what I was using at the time, I would have like 50 attacks per second.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those glorious days of innocence when we started our first character and thought, we're experienced gamers. We don't need a build guide.
I was like, 50 life on hit. That's insane. I can just stand there and hit 20 times per second and I'll never die. Watch my character get one shot in merciless docks.
You probably also didn't understand resists and defenses.
Oh, I doubt my resists were capped.
Yeah. I remember my first character, I got my resists capped. It's like, it was on a Scion, and I got all the resists at the Scion start, and I ran like purities, and I geared around it. And I was so proud when I had my resists capped. And then someone told me, well, that's, you have to kind of do that on every character. So it's not like a special feat. That's like minimum effort for defense.
That's the thing you're supposed to be doing, like actively.
Yeah. Right.
All right, I've seen.
Yeah, no, there's this.
I've seen the first post. I'm gonna quickly mouse through the remaining posts for the ones that I haven't seen, and then react if I see something interesting.
Just
All right.
just do the thing where you like straight up interrupt if we're in the middle of something and you get excited. We're not gonna get offended. It's fine. Do it.
Yeah. Balor, tell us about your 6 different league start builds.
But I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm so lost. I have absolutely no idea what a league start. Oh, alright. So I should tell you why I'm struggling with what I'm going to league start. I've put myself super out of my comfort zone. First of all, I'm not starting in a trade league. I'm starting in a group found league with my own chat. There's about 100 of us. And it's just going to be completely group found. So no trading for currency. I'm never going to be rich. That's not happening. Like, I'm not going to make a profit. It's all just communist league. Everybody shares everything. So for starters, the normal thing I do in this game is just make way too much money and use that money to make my character so powerful that I can be an idiot and still do well. That's not an option. I'm not just going to be able to buy a mage blood or anything. Like, I can't do that. I'm out of the market. There is no market for me. So that's going to be weird. Then I'm starting as a bosser for the private league with the intention of getting into Uber bosses without doing any of the ZHP insta-give them things. Which I've killed Uber bosses maybe a total of 10 times ever. And I mean all of them combined. I've never farmed them. I don't know what I'm doing. And so, way out of my comfort zone in builds, way out of my comfort zone in leagues, not going to be able to make any money. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, my Uber boss experience was make a build that does 500 million damage in one hit and then just kill them.
That is my general experience too. If I kill Ubers, it's because I do 500 million damage. That's not going to happen this time. I'm not going to have that. And I'm not going to have forbidden jewels to do anything with. Like, there's only like 100 of us. There's not going to be a market.
Do my build, which seems SSF viable. It's the one I'm making the video for. It's the one Quackman 3.0.
Right.
Just really, really boosted explodey golems.
Yeah.
500 million damage.
Right now, I'm thinking Hex Blast Mines will still be my starter. That's what I've been practicing for the last week and a half. That's what I thought I was going to start until they started giving me a bunch of options that seem really cool. But I think I'm just going to default to the Hex Blast Mine thing that I've been practicing because I know it'll work. I know it's really good. Also, some of the that one alt Hex Blast might actually work quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that as an option. And then, because I'm in a private league, I can do stuff that I can't normally do in a trade league. Like, for all the leagues throughout the rest of the league, what I can do is I can get ideas from my private league and be like, oh, this new gem and this new gem, I was hoping that I wanted to see a build with this. And I can take that new gem that we find, make a build on it, make content on it, min-max it as best as I can inside the private league, and then just give it to the person whose build idea started. Who's picked the gem or whatever, and then move on to the next one. And that might be really fun.
Okay, I found one that interests me. Purifying Flame of Revelations. So it's very interesting because you want the enemy to be standing on consecrated ground, but you want to not be aiming at them with the Purified Flame because it will do more damage if you don't hit them with the main projectile. So Purifying Flame has insane AoE, but only if they're standing on consecrated ground.
Right.
So I guess you hit them with the first one to make the consecrated ground, and then you aim somewhere else, and all of the shock waves will hit where you first aimed, and it will do more damage than regular Purifying Flame.
Huh.
Wait, it's the second one?
It's in the third one. It's the first one in part 3.
So my understanding of Purifying Flame is that the secondary pulse, like the ground pulse that happens over all ground, will hit the main target anyway.
It specifically says it damages
miss.
enemies standing on consecrated ground that were not already hit.
Oh.
And this
you have
one
to intentionally miss.
And it does 110% more damage if you miss. Now the base damage,
no triggering that. No mines or traps.
The base damage is lower, but 110% more. It works out being higher.
The effectiveness is also the same?
Let me see. The effectiveness.
Yeah, I assume.
No,
I would assume it's the same.
It is. The original is 300, and it goes down to 200. But then with 110% more damage, it ends up being.
It's still better, yeah.
For 20%. Which is
but you miss with the initial hit, so
math.
you don't. You miss the damage of the initial hit though, if you don't hit with the initial hit.
Yeah, but it does. It would do less damage if you hit them with the initial hit, because the shockwave does more than double the damage.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying compared to the base skill, where you get both the damage of the shockwave and the initial hit.
No, the base skill does that as well. The shockwave does not damage enemies that were already hit.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a difference from the base.
So this is assuming you're not always hitting them with the main projectile. This is strictly more damage.
So you want to pop a bottled face while you're standing near a boss, and then attack behind you and wave through yourself to the boss.
Yep. So you can be attacking the ads and doing more damage to the boss than if you were aiming at the boss.
That's
this also
weird.
Means you don't have to aim at the boss.
In fact, you shouldn't.
But like you're in an Uber boss and you're panicking and flickering around all over the place, and you don't have time to like calmly kite and aim at the boss. You aim at the boss once, and then you can aim at your feet for like the next 5 seconds.
We've
got Snoo in the call.
We got Snoo
if he should join.
Oh yeah, Snoo can feel very. Come in if you want to. No worries. Second wins, dude. Second wins. Podcast is gonna go longer and longer.
I originally said that I was going to be the one that shows up an hour late, and then we delayed it an hour. So now we've swapped roles.
All right.
Yeah, so I like that Purifying Flame a lot. I can't see a use for it in my builds, but it seems pretty good. You could trigger a regular Purifying Flame some other way, and then use this as your main skill.
Well, the important part is you just need Consecrated Ground. You don't need Purifying Flame.
You can just use Zealotry.
Holy Flame Totem?
You put a Holy Flame Totem directly on top of them and then Purifying Flame somewhere else.
Yeah.
It would work.
It would.
Hold on. Now I have to revisit Holy Flame Totem of Ire. Is it any good?
Just Holy Flame Totem under them.
While you check that, I want to quickly bring up the Wild Strike that we haven't talked about yet. The crazy Wild Strike that treats enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted.
Yeah. So you know how Doriani's is normally a thing with a downside where you have to like bring yourself to negative lightning res? Yeah. Well, what if you just super positive lightning res with Doriani's? And you make them all have super positive lightning res. And then you
I haven't even thought about that, dude.
I've just thought about it goes above cap. So like if you have 75% capped and then you have like 200%, it's still going to be 75% on the monster.
Yes.
Oh, I'll take minus 75 on the enemy.
But if you have 90% cap, it'll give them 90. What happens if you put on the helmet that doubles their res?
I'm pretty sure treating it as inverted happens after the cap calculation. And I'm not even sure if you having more than 75% lightning res would translate to the enemy.
I think it does as long as your cap is above it.
So let's say you cap yourself at 90%, you give the enemy 90%, and then this turns that to negative 90%. So it's not quite as good as actual Doriani's, but you don't get the downside.
Well, okay, so but the next question then, what about the helmet that doubles enemies' resistance?
I think that applies for the Wild Strike.
Yeah, I don't know where that would come. Like, so it doesn't matter where the wild. It wouldn't matter where the Wild Strike happens. It matters where Doriani's and that helmet appear. Like, does Doriani's override the helmet and it stays tiny?
The helmet modifies the number on their character sheet, right? So, like, it would show up if you were in PvP and you went to your sheet and you looked at your resistances, the number would be different from the helmet. And then that number is then inverted.
So wouldn't that make it they have 180?
No, because it would. So you have 1,000% lightning res and it's capped to 90%. You double that, you have 2,000 and it's capped to 90%, and then you invert it, so it becomes -90.
Okay, order of operations. I'm confused.
Order of operations. You do all of your resistances calculation except for the inversion. The inversion happens when you hit them.
Okay, so let me.
Well, it doesn't even happen. It just like only your hits treated as inverted. So the hits.
So they have the resistance
of the monster at the time,
and then it becomes inverted when you hit them. So like whatever auras you have that change their resist, those always happen first, and then you hit them, and then it inverts it.
So let me walk through.
Altar mods, dude.
I up my max res to 90 wearing a Doriani. So we'll just say I have 1,000 res, but only 90 of it matters, right? Because I'm capped at 90. That's the maximum. So my thought process is that standing as it is gives all the mobs around me 90 lightning res. Yeah. Then my thought is the helmet that doubles enemies' res that we would normally use to super curse them down to a negative res and then double that negative value. I'm thinking that might double the positive value, and instead of them being at 90, which is what I'm giving them from Doriani's, that I might be able to double it to 180. And
but that's still capped to 90.
Do they cap to 90?
If they could get 100%, 180% resistances, then you would heal them with elemental damage. All resistances cap at 90, right?
So they cap as well. They can't actually.
They might even cap at 75. I'm not even sure if you can get them above 75 without like applying your purity of lightning.
Your purity to them.
I'm not sure if you can increase their cap with Doriani's. I'm not sure if that works. But then, regardless, the hits treat enemy monster resistances values as inverted. What that means is, consider a regular damage calculation where you're hitting them and they have that resistance and it's not inverted. It at that moment flips it. So when you go to hit an enemy and it has 90% res from your Doriani's, and then you double it again with the helmet and it's still 90%, they have 90% resist against your regular hits. Then with this Wild Strike, you invert it and it becomes -90. There's no scenario where you can give them 3,000 lightning res and then it inverts it to -3,000, because it uses the number that is involved in the damage calculation, not the one that's uncapped on the sheet.
Okay. Which probably leaves us, for the most part, if you want to use that, you're locking yourself to -75 being the best value you could get, like the best usable value in most cases.
Which is still a shitload of damage.
I mean, they're still quite good, and it still frees up your curses to not be using like conductivity, LE weak, exposure, all those things that you don't have to use anymore, that you can now use, a mark instead and things like that.
I looked at Holy Flame Totem of Ire. It is marginally better to place the Holy Flame Totem on the enemy and then start Purifying Flame the ground. It is marginally better to do that than to Purifying Flame the enemy and then the ground. First of all, because the Flame Totem lasts longer, so if they're standing still, this is just better. And also, over the 8 seconds that the totem lasts, it will do more damage than one cast.
Yeah.
Unless you have it in a 4-link, then maybe you reconsider this.
Hmm.
2 6-links, it's certainly better.
I'm sad that my Doriani's idea wasn't a good idea.
I mean,
you're right. Now that we've
did
talked it
negate
through,
the downside of Doriani's, though.
yeah, but not enough to be worth using it, I don't think.
I mean, you're already building around Wild Strike. If you make something functional, you've succeeded.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh, I just saw another one that excited me. Ice Spear of Splitting. Projectile can split from hitting terrain.
Yes.
So you aim an Ice Spear at a wall, it splits towards 7 enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So shooting these everywhere willy-nilly is pretty good.
Lightning Trap also has that split chains from terrain. So chain and split from terrain is weird. Also, could you use Frostball to create your own terrain and split off that?
Any interaction with projectiles and Frostwall was completely nuked in the beta, I believe, because you could use Infractum and Lightning Arrow to have infinite pierce through an infinitely...
I remember doing that, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so they decided player projectiles will never interact with Frostwall in any way.
You're right. Actually, I remember doing that. I remember you find a boss, you'd put up like 3 or 4 frost rolls or something like that right on top of it, and then just fire once. And it was just like, boom.
It would melt the server, kill the enemy in 1 instant, and then kaboom. Yeah,
you're right.
There's a reason that was obliterated, and Frostwall is now very, very niche.
Yeah.
The last use I heard of for it was to physically block the Fizz Dot tornadoes in Deep Delve. That's the last time I heard someone use it for something useful. You can also conversion trap those tornadoes.
I think there was also some Frostwall in the PoE 2 gameplay from the Mercenary that we've seen.
Frostwall seems a lot more useful in PoE 2 because it seems, unless the end game of PoE 2 is a lot more zoomy and a lot more stun immune, it seems like a reasonable strategy to have some way to funnel tons of ads into one spot.
You can also Frostwall the red boss X-Arch the balls. You can just place Frostwalls down and stand behind them. Not directly behind them. They have
it collides with them.
Yeah. Don't stand directly behind them because they explode for like area and you'll still kill yourself. But you can just throw Frostballs out in like 2 directions and block 2 directions completely.
Why haven't I tried that? I just assumed that it wouldn't work because it doesn't work with player projectiles.
Yeah, you would think so, but it blocks the walls. I've needed to do that because I play a lot of minion builds, and you know what you can't do? Control those minions very specifically to walk through a tiny gap. So your extra minions or specters will blow up the ball beside you that you didn't even hit and kill you.
Yeah, and then you take the area damage from it.
Yeah.
I actually don't understand. Do you think from a design point of view those balls need to do area damage? Wouldn't it be sufficient if they just dealt damage to the thing that they hit?
I hate them, to be honest.
I feel like this was a way to avoid, like, if you get hit by a strike skill, but you actually like walk out of the way in time, it doesn't actually hit you. I feel like this is some way to avoid that interaction where you walk into it and walk back really quick and it doesn't actually hurt you.
Yeah.
I guess.
Either that or it's there specifically to kill everyone's minions.
Yeah, I guess it would be too easy to block them off with totems and minions and frost walls if they didn't deal the area damage, right? Like if they just dealt damage to whatever they hit.
Maybe it's directly targeted at party play. You have one guy that's really tanking, runs through all the balls.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for alternative solutions that would like not allow minion players a free out without like fucking everyone else over.
I mean, you just make them pass through minions.
Yeah, that's what
None
I
of
was
those
gonna
balls,
suggest.
even in the Ubers, the balls don't do enough to actually kill your minions. Your minions are much more tanky than you.
Yeah.
They just do enough to guarantee the player's death with no way that you can deal with that at all. This
Now
is the
that we're
pass
in
through
this
minions.
in this almost intermission where our second guest finally joins, one quick question, Berto, is that just on my end? But like the sound and your video doesn't sync up, but it might be my capturing. I don't know. It's just for your camera, not for mine. And then it's I can't see for Yosis. But no, I mean, if you're saying that, it's like
Interesting. I have no idea. It looks good on my end.
yeah, no, it's just a Twitch issue, I suppose here. Like,
yeah, I see it on
I'm...
YouTube and on the thing.
Oh, it's also on YouTube?
No, like it's working on YouTube.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Thanks for confirming.
So I saw an interesting line here. I don't think this works how I think it works. Raise Spectre of Transience. Minion movement speed is capped.
Yeah.
Does that just mean that they knew it would be too fast and they capped it at a number, or does that bring them up to the cap? And what is the cap?
Well, I've had 350% movement speed before on minions, and it wasn't at a cap there. And I don't even know how you get more. I wasn't aware that there was a minion movement speed cap, because it's already something I stack with. I target minion movement speed with like the most extreme. Like I love it. It's my absolute favorite. I've never reached a cap. I didn't know there was a cap.
It's a little bit negligible on ranged minions, but still really, really good. But on melee minions, 100% the best stat.
So theoretically, you're using Raise Spectre of Transience. I don't know what you would desecrate to have good transient specters, but then they have, what is the cap? Is it like 600% movement speed? Does it bring them up to that cap? Because that would be truly insane.
I assumed that this was like introducing a cap, and they just didn't tell us the number.
Yeah, they're like, I know 55% more speed is too good, so we're capping it to like 300% or something. And the fact that this cap only applies to these minions and no other minion, it would be strange.
Yeah. I can't think of anything I'd rather do less than have to find brand new corpses for my specters every single map, let alone every 30 seconds.
Yeah, specters are kind of...
It's a base duration, so it's like...
It's really important that you find a good one, because if you just take a random mob from Path of Exile and raise it as a specter, the odds of it being good are very low.
So
not just that, it's also very specific which support gem setup you want for like a given spec. Like, you can't just summon a different specter with the same gem setup. So
what's the other corpse thing? Not desecrate. Is it unearth?
Yeah, unearth, that very specific skeleton.
Those are the exact same mobs every time, which has been like the only use case for something like this. But even then, the mobs that they are trash, and you don't want them. So it's the only way to like reliably get the exact same mob every time is unearth.
Here's what you do: you
just make a very generic
and just carry around a full inventory of the new corpses.
Just an inventory full of hydras. Just
and then you drop 5 of them, and then you have 5 hydras for 30 seconds.
Probably want to suck at increased duration in that case to get more out of your investment there.
Yeah, you would use this on Uber bosses or something.
I mean, it's a lot of crit.
1,000% crit is pretty good.
Nope.
Is there still a way to give them Soul Eater? Did they remove that?
Yeah, no, it still exists. No one's used it in like 3 years, but it exists.
Soul Eater, and you use the thing that you use the new mark that spawns phantasms.
Oh yeah. That's another use for that thing. Soul Eater. Oh, and Rampage. Oh, I forgot about Soul Eater and Rampage for the mark.
You know what? I may have to use that because my build uses Soul Eater. I was gonna go Ascendancies, but I mean, yeah, I was gonna go Charms, but having more Soul Eater stacks is pretty good.
Yep, that's not bad.
Damn. Discovering new things to try out by the minute. Yeah, I suppose you can have like a very
Scorching Ray.
I was gonna say you can have a very generic gem setup, just minion speed, minion damage, minion life, and that way you could get over that like discrepancy between different Spectre base monsters using different skills, like spells versus attacks, projectile versus AoE, and all that.
The Scorching Ray one has higher stacks and more damage, but no exposure, and also more duration, I think. I was hoping it would be good enough to use instead of Fire Trap in like Righteous Fire builds, because I know Fire Trap's been good, and I know it's the go-to, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have been using it. We should have been using it. It was the correct choice. But I hate it, by the way. Like, Righteous Fire's single target is throwing traps? That doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. It's the correct choice, but it's dumb that it's the correct choice.
I saw Shield Crush of the Chieftain. It makes it do fire damage instead of physical damage, and it makes it do... So, like, the added fire damage is almost twice as high. It's 7 to 9 fire damage per 15 armor on your shield.
Mm-hmm.
Seems... I mean, I know it's easier to scale... It's better to scale physical damage and, like, convert it to elemental, but pure fire damage is not bad, especially when it's base, like, twice as good. So I feel like at least one person is going to build this and get like 20 billion damage.
Mm.
Yeah, that would be really funny if RF users run around with a bow and shoot everything with burning arrow.
That's the other gem. Now that it was brought up in chat, that I remember briefly getting excited about was that burning arrow.
The barf setup, burning arrow, righteous fire.
Is there a burning arrow that scales with spell damage or what?
It's the barf setup. It's what everyone should be running now.
Well, it's just the burning arrow looks so good. The burning arrow gem,
24% max life, added fire damage is insane.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a life stacker. This is a life stacker attack. Have we ever had that before? I feel like I've only ever seen life stacker spells.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
I've seen some attack builds with pretty high life as a result of strength stacking, but not like we were intentionally getting life. It's just that when you get 3,000 strength, you end up with quite a bit of life.
The attack speed is 70% of base.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's so slow.
Yeah.
On a righteous fire build, you're going to be standing still for a full 2 seconds.
The bath build is worth it just to be able to make a bath build.
It's actually great. And then you can still throw a fire trap. It still works. You can have 3 things going at once. It might be better to do flame surge because the burning arrow seems insane.
Yeah.
Scorching Ray totem.
Hey, they can use the Scorching Ray of Immolation, which is just Scorching Ray, but it also does damage instead of reducing their resist.
Oh man, I need the league start. Can we league start now? What's... I need to start. I need to play.
Yeah, you were talking about your league starters. You had a list of like different bossing builds and different farming builds that you potentially wanted to start with.
Yeah, I ended up just knocking it down to either fire trap, lightning trap, SRS, obviously poison, or hex blast mines for bossing, which is what I'm going to do. One of those.
So they got rid of what? The Anima Stone for golems.
Mm-hmm.
Did they also get rid of all of the other primordial gems?
So they didn't get rid of all the other primordial gems, and one of those primordial gems had +2 on it as well.
Oh, a replica might or something?
No, one of the normal ones we used. Basically, the TLDR is we ended up with 1 extra golem, more than we had before.
So this is actually a buff to 1 Quackman 3.0.
1 extra golem and 1 less dual socket required, or potentially 3 less if you want to drop back to the same amount of golems.
This gives me 1 more golem, so I can use an additional golem and 1 less zombie, and I get a jewel socket, which I can use to put another primordial might. So that ends up being like an extra 30 million damage.
Nice.
Hell
when is this build coming out?
So I built this in Calandra League, and I'm pretty sure it still works.
Are you putting out a video before League start?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
I
unhelpful.
have like VODs.
that is unhelpful. Okay. You gonna pass a building? Do you want to share that?
All I have to show you, you can probably build better than my Path of Building, because all it is Maw of Mischief and Annihilating Light, and you scale crit. So you detonate all 13 minions, and it does triple damage based on 19% of their life. And it does 10% more damage per minion, so it's 10% more damage 13 times. And then you just stack Stone Golem life and Zombie life. And so you get 50 million damage per Golem, 20-something million damage per Zombie, and then you just debuff the boss.
Right. And you're not locked into the Ignite cap, which is the normal Maw of Mischief stuff.
Yep, so
you get to just do a big hit.
Because the buff and debuff sequence is so long, Uber bosses have a ridiculous amount of less damage taken that decays over 8 seconds. And it takes about 3 seconds to do the combo. And that's enough time for it to decay down to enough where I can one-shot Uber bosses through their protection. So I have clips of me killing Uber Exarch in 4 seconds.
Okay, well, if I fail to be able to kill Uber bosses, I guess I know what I reroll into.
It was great because we had a debate at the time as to whether the Uber bosses actually had that scaling damage reduction at the beginning, because I couldn't tell, because I was killing them in 1 hit anyway.
Nice.
The only thing about the combo that is gone now is hot swapping Ralakesh's Impatience for the charges, and I only had 3 charges. So it's just slightly less damage from that, but I got compensated by having an extra golem.
You could also just get your charges back from the charms.
Yeah, the whole new Ascendancy added on top. Free damage. What would I get? It would have to be Elementalist just giving me more damage.
Or an extra golem.
More golems, baby.
I don't even know if those charms exist, but they might.
I had my stone golem at, I think, 220,000 life.
Oof.
If I remember correctly. So this was in Calandra League, so I spent a long time trying to get a double minion life ring and minion damage. Yeah. And I ended up with one. Like, it still had 3 bad negative stats, but it had life, and minion damage, all tier 1. And those all got, like, level 15 boosted, or level 13 boosted. So it was, like, 2.15 times multiplier. And it increased my damage by about 10%. And I spent 250 divines doing that.
How does a build like that map?
Poorly.
Okay, I thought so. I thought that was going to be the answer.
I'm pretty sure I went around throwing Wave of Conviction for clear.
Right.
I mean, it one-shot everything, but it was just slow and had no defenses.
Yeah.
Why would you need defenses when you have damage?
That's true.
Oh, I was using Rolling Magma.
I am. Yep.
Because my damage was so high that I could just boost the GMP and AoE. I have a POB. I think it's probably in my Twitch, actually. Let me go to my own Twitch and do my own Nightbot command. Look at my own Nightbot. It is old, but I'm reasonably certain that it still works. Oh, it's on Pastebin. Let's see if it still exists.
Uh-oh.
I have it saved locally for sure, but let's see if that actually... link is broken. No longer available. All right. Let me grab the POB.
Silly Pastebin.
At the same time, I'll fix my Nightbot command.
Yeah, so I guess I could say that I was really, really tempted to start Lightning Arrow again after I did that in the Blast from the Past event, because that was very, very smooth. And I've been told since that I could have just leveled all the way as a bow character,
Yeah,
which
level
I
12
may
Lightning
have
Arrow.
tried.
Instant.
Yeah, but Poisonous Concoction is so good.
It's so
The
much
overlaps
slower than
and the
Lightning Arrow.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Like,
I tried
but you
leveling
don't need a
Poisonous
weapon for it.
Concoction. This is the same character I was complaining I had absolutely no damage investment, and then my Caustic Arrow ended up being really bad. I switched from Poisonous Concoction to Caustic Arrow, and it was an improvement, and it was still really bad.
Yeah. Poisonous Concoction is so overhyped for leveling. It's not even... It's the fallback when nothing else works. When you're like, okay, the build I want to do doesn't exist. I can't do the thing. Poison Concoction will still work. But like, there are some... Especially bows. They level so much quicker and smoother with more damage. Like, a Poison Concoction is just hyped. It's not actually that good, I don't think.
Well, I just consider it smooth sailing. Like, it has less moving parts that you need to get in order. I guess you could say that with less RNG falling into your hands, it still has a better baseline, right? But it doesn't get much beyond that baseline if you actually get decent gear while leveling. I mean, if you find a good bow, if you find a bow like the fucking bow that I found from Act 9 boss just a second ago before this podcast, no, actually like a couple hours ago, I did a practice run. I found a thicket bow with tier 1 perfect attack speed and double tier 5 flats and tier 3 accuracy or something like that, and open prefix, open suffix, so you could craft the flat cold or you could craft a crit. And yeah, if you found that on an actual league start, that would last you into red maps for sure.
Nice.
So in the
crazy.
POV I just sent, I'll send it in the YouTube chat or something.
Yeah.
It has a particularly good elegant hubris that for very few passive points has 2 minion 80% life, 40% crit multi, and 80% crit chance. If I unallocate those nodes, the hit DPS in POB, which is not accurate but it's close, goes from 442 million to 357 million. So it's still really good without all this crazy stuff that I have. Like, all you need is just basic gear that has like minion life essence on it or something, and then what else do I have? Oh yeah, I had just a bunch of primordial mites that I think I got for like 1 divine each. All of the damage comes from detonating 13 minions that have really good base life. What did I put in my configuration? 191,506 golem life. And then I use a sulfur flask and its Ziri's Promise and a diamond flask, all with enkindling 70% effect, because all I care about is the big damage for 1 second. And then there's like a 3-second buff debuff where it's like, oh, Wave of Conviction, walk over them with the brittle boots, stuff like that.
Look, this is definitely like a little awkward to set up the damage off. But I'm like looking around for where there's like fake padding in this part of the building, and there isn't any. It's just 500 million hit DPS.
When you have 191,000 golem life and you're doing 19% of that 13 times, and then you triple it with Annihilating Light,
and somehow you've managed to keep 5.4k life and 1,000 regen, so you're not even like super squishy. It's not tanky.
I think the life comes from the 212 max life on the ring.
Oh, from Calandra.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other ring and the amulet are not Calandrid, but that one is. What do I have on my chest? Has 110 plus 7%. I didn't even re-roll that to be 8%.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's really good for how cheap it is.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it still works on the current patch. Like, if you can, I'm going to try converting the passive tree to 3.22 just to see what it breaks.
Shouldn't break the passive.
I don't think it changed anything.
No, my deeps went down like a little bit, but not much.
It changed one of the nodes from the Timeless Jewel. Like, that part of the passive tree changed, so that node is different. It is no longer 40% crit damage. It is now 10% damage per endurance charge. So that seed is worse than it used to be because they changed it. So that means I have 3 more passive points. Oh, and it changed.
I sadly can't show the build on the screen because there's some issue with trying to capture the POB. I just wanted to mention that to the people.
So first of all, I'll fix my Nightbot command so you can go to my Twitch chat and do !build, and it'll do the link in case you're like watching it in some way that you can't tell.
Yep.
Oh wait, I pasted the original Pastebin link wrong. It still exists. All right, so that link still does work, but I'm pasting a new one, which is slightly better. It has the gems leveled to 20 instead of 19.
All right.
All right, which window has the... I've got so many windows open. Oh, God.
Which window has what?
This one. There we go. There's POB. In the YouTube chat. I gotta find the Twitch chat. Hello, Twitch chat. Here's a Pastebin link.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah, I guess I could show the... That's true, I can show this one.
So it truly is stack minion life and some damage, and then just Maw Mischief. So the updated version of this would just use the new Golem gem that has an extra Golem. It wouldn't have the Anima Stone. It would just stick another Primordial Might in there, and then you have like 5 passive points to mess with.
5 lower levels to be the one-shot bosses.
I would put them in the in crit, probably. Let me do the power report. Just do the POB, show node power. What would be the best use of these few passive points? Just to get more damage. Care about average hit. Show power report. Let's see. It's gonna take. It's chugging. It's got to calculate every node on the tree. $4.4 million average hit for Heartseeker, which is 11 points away. So that's like 10 points of damage. So we go per point. There's just a minion damage cluster somewhere. Why did it link me over here?
I will
that
be back
15
in just
that
a moment.
15% minion damage next to the Lord of the Dead is showing up as 750,000 damage. That's just 15% increased generic damage, and it's 750,000 damage. So every passive point is good.
Yeah, so it sounds about right.
Could probably
Dude,
get
that's a
minimum
crazy
power
damage
charges.
output.
Oh yeah, the configuration has power and frenzy charges from Ralakash. That's no longer true. You can't do that in this patch. Or in this coming league, they changed how Ralakash works, so that bit is inaccurate. But I mean, you're not losing much. You don't need that much damage. We went further beyond than we needed to. Once you get to 270 million, you can one-shot Uber bosses, so you don't need more. Anyway, I feel like we're talking about an old build too much when we should be talking about the new league.
You're very tuned in. No, I still have a question relating to that, because you just said...
Oh, yeah, sure.
That you spend 250 divines or so on an upgrade.
It was not worth it.
Begs the question: where do you get 250 divines? What do you do
at
on
this
League
point,
Start
it was
to fund your insane league projects?
For most builds, I make them very cheap, and I use currency that I farm myself playing very few hours. For stuff like this, where it's like, we need to buy mirror tiles in Kalandra and mirror rings, this was 250 divines. This was viewers funneled me divines until I got the ring that I wanted.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
This was just because we were like, we're already one-shotting Uber bosses. It truly does not matter if I gain further advantage from this. I'm throwing money into a dumpster.
Yeah, just to
we
see
just want to
how
see big
far we
number
can
on
get it.
stream. So
Yeah,
when we're in that scenario, then I'll have viewers throw divines at me. But
yeah, absolutely.
it truly did not give me any advantage whatsoever.
No, but
Someone
if
gave
it
me a
saves
mirror
the
and I
viewers
vendored
from
it.
the torture of watching like repetitive farming content for prolonged periods of time, then
It's not just that
that is
I'm
fair.
preventing them from watching me grind. It's that I truly do not have enough time to grind that much in the length of one league. So the build won't... If you don't give me the divines to have this 250 divine item the build won't ever have it. Which, to be fair, is what I want. I want my builds to be cheap and accessible. This was just hubris. How high can the number go? And Twitch chat really wanted to see that, so they threw divines at it. But it is truly
so
not
if
necessary.
no one throws divines at you, what is the strat that you employ early league?
Make a cheap
Or
build.
what-
I straight up chaos recipe. Like the way that I
Literally?
grind currency is awful. I play the game and I chaos recipe, and if I get a divine drop, oh boy, we're in business. That's like a third of the build.
No, playing the game, I'm on the page with you, but like chaos recipes, I've done but on a few occasions.
So, like, I mostly play to have fun and to do my stupid build and to talk to Twitch chat. So my Act 10 run to get into maps is usually an average of 10 hours. Because I'll
That sounds fair.
stand there and try on microtransactions. I'll take a break to go get food or something. Like, I will just not rush. I'll explore the league mechanic in acts, which you shouldn't do if you want to go fast. For someone with 5,000 plus hours in the game, you would expect a roughly 5 to 6 hour time.
Not necessarily. Depends on like what your goal is, right? Like a lot of people with the good times also like enter maps really, really early and really unprepared. They die a lot in their first couple of maps. And
by the time like that 10 hours is not spent capping my resistances. It is spent going very slowly through zones and not grinding efficiently. Like I get to maps and I have negative res and 2k life or something.
Right.
I figure it's much. So my philosophy is, it's softcore. I don't care about dying. Getting to maps, and then even if I die constantly in maps, mapping is significantly more efficient than grinding acts. So like instead of spending an hour in acts capping my resistances, it's much faster to die constantly through the campaign, get to the map, and then cap my resistances in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So now you see why my strategy for grinding currency early is very bad.
Well, I was just hoping that you have the one or other trick up your sleeve that you'd like to share with our viewers.
The trick up my sleeve is that maps are better than acts.
Yep.
So I get
one.
to maps in rags, and I just know how to not die 6 times per map when I have 1k life and no resistances and 10k DPS.
Fair enough.
And then I fill out my Atlas with that terrible build until I so the way that I do my gear upgrades, I pick up something in Act 1 just to like put on my character, and then I get to maps with that still on, and then I don't replace it until I have the thing that's in my endgame POB. That is the worst possible way to gear, and it still works out for me.
I have a habit of replacing gear based purely on sockets. If it's a 3-link I need it doesn't ever. I never look at it. Pick up a 3-link glove and I need those links. I never look at gloves again until a 4-link one drops. I do replace gear if I need the sockets. Yeah, it's just sockets.
Okay, so I was trying to say earlier, so I'm looking at the POB. I'm still missing like 5 passive points. The hit DPS is listed as 350 million. That's not correct, but it is a good indication of how much damage it does. If I unequip the Kalandra ring entirely, so you don't have this crazy OP ring, it goes down to 318 million, which is still more than enough to one-shot an Uber boss for full.
Yep.
An Uber boss with 70% less damage taken is something like 270 million life, effectively. So, as long as you have more than that, and you wait 8 seconds before you do your one-shot combo, you don't need more damage. More damage just means you don't have to wait as long for the damage reduction to go away, because you can one-shot them through the damage reduction.
Okay.
So back to the power report. We go 2 points to get 1.5 million damage. Where is that? Where is Divine Fury? That is damage penetrates 5% fire res. And that ends up working out to 1.5 million damage. All the best ones are crit. A marked enemy taking 10% increased damage. Do I use Assassin's Mark? Almost certainly. Yep, Assassin's Mark is where most of my crit multi comes from.
Well, sorry for the moment of silence here. I think Balor and I are both talking in the background to our fourth guest or fourth podcast participant who has had some technical difficulties joining, but should be here any moment. And then we can still get some advice from Snoo here. Welcome, the one and only Snoo Bay. How's it going? You're looking good there.
Hey there. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Best.
Yeah.
Loud and
well,
crisp
here's some
and
evidence
clear.
of some major technical difficulties. I usually have a camera, as basically everybody knows. But some people know that I've had issues with camera flickering and I guess shutter speeds and stuff, and it's actually becoming quite a ridiculous problem. And it would have just been like horrifying to try to display the camera, I realized, right now until I get that fixed. So not really sure how to fix it, but be up for taking some advice on that if anybody has any suggestions.
I'll gladly help you troubleshoot it after the podcast for a moment and see whether I know something. But I think those problems are very camera setup specific usually. I mean, I know that my problems are very, very awkward. But yeah, we essentially already went over everything, and we're looking to round things off in the next half an hour or so. But now, of course, with you, we get fresh second winds, fresh energy in the podcast. Now we can talk about all the topics again, but this time from your point of view. So, well, just hit us with the hype levels. Like, how do you feel about Affliction?
You know, on my mind, first of all, I just want to apologize. It wasn't not just technical issues. I saw you were trying to save me some grace there, but actually I dropped the ball and I don't really have any great excuse, but I was very late and overslept when I've not been oversleeping the entire time, and failed to set an alarm and overslept at the same time. So that was very unfortunate. And I've seen other people do that on these Fated podcasts of yours, and I thought, roll my eyes and think, how stupid is that? How do they let that happen? And
it's actually
absolutely hating myself right now. Yeah, I am just beside myself.
I was gonna say no one has done it more than Balor. So.
Yeah, it's super easy. Sometimes we'll start the podcast and they'll be like, all right, 6 a.m. I can do 6 a.m. That'll be fine. I'll set alarms and everything. And then I'll wake up at 7 and be like, fuck.
Right, but this wasn't technically a really inconvenient time for me. That's the thing. So anyway,
it's also
I will answer your question, though. I will answer your
question,
Kevin.
Don't indulge in the bad feelings and the feeling guilty. You're here, that's all that matters now.
I'm guessing you talked about Affliction League and the fact that the mechanic is in-game, so that's exciting.
In-map, you mean?
In-map, as opposed to...
Yeah, sorry, in-maps, as opposed to... last league, or I guess technically Crucible League was in maps, but that didn't really offer much in the way of.
I'd rather it wasn't.
Yeah. So by my recollection, it's been since Sentinel League since we had an in-map mechanic that had real ramifications for loot dropped in the map, especially in the way of like literally increasing loot as opposed to just giving some little side stuff like Crucible did. So that means all of us juicers and magic finders and what have you get to experiment a great deal this league. It's going to be very exciting.
Interesting league for me to pick to be in a private league, the whole league. But a decision was made before I knew what mechanics were happening.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a little bit jealous about the private league stuff. I wish I was in a private league, but I've suggested stuff like that to my chat before, and they were all like, "Oh no, we want to do softcore trade." But next time I'll do it. Next time I'll join you, Balor, for your communist stuff.
Communist league.
And you've talked a lot about
I did cut you off there,
right?
Snooey. You have a lot of things that you want to catch up with, so feel free to grab the microphone and.
Well, I was just going to say, you guys talked about the gems already, I assume.
Yeah.
We did.
But we didn't get your standout gems.
So many. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's at least one that is different from what we picked.
There has to have been some you've seen and gone, Jesus.
It has to be Explosive Concoction. That's a gem that has to be the one that nobody else talked about, yeah.
Are you interested in that one?
Not genuinely in terms of my own league starter plans this time, but I sure as heck wish I had it last league. I don't suppose any of you know what it is.
No,
I'm trying to find it. Which batch of gems is this?
100% crit multi.
98% crit multi as opposed to 98% crit dot multi for the fire. If you have a fire for a ruby flat.
Yep. So it used to be like 2 sources of flat damage and then fire.multi, which like there was no synergy, and now it's just crit multi.
Mm-hmm. Wait, actually, I just now realized, is it 3 sources of flat damage, including fire flat? Or
Yeah, you get fire flat, cold flat, and lightning flat. The fire flat is base on the gem. You don't need ruby flask. The ruby flask is just 98% crit multi, and I'm just spitballing to level 21 gem here would be 100%.
Well, oh my god, I made an update video for this and I actually missed that. I can't believe I missed that. I missed the fact that they added fire, and I
think
basically
it had
said that
added
it's
fire to begin with.
Oh, it did have fire. Oh, okay. See, okay,
let me look at explosive concoction.
Did it always
So
have
what I
plus
saw
crit?
is that it was 20% less added damage across the board on that gem, but in return we get 2% flat crit, which is absolutely enormous, and 98% crit multi.
Yep, that's correct.
And it effectively increased the damage on my path of building via config and all that by roughly 40 to 50% more damage.
And I am happy to report that in this time where I was like updating the tree to the newest version of the One Crackman 3.0, I was right. You do just get, it is just a buff. First of all, there's a fire mastery that changed, and now you do 100% increased damage with hits against ignited enemies because you're igniting them with Wave of Conviction as part of the combo. So that's just 100% free damage right there. Taking a bunch of shock effect with static blows ends up being like the most efficient use of the points, and then you have 1 point left over. Just throw it on the 15% minion damage. The POB average hit went from updating the tree was like 55 million average hit. It went up to 57 million, and you get an extra golem.
Nice.
So the updated version is actually better than the version in the video, unless how much damage does the ring make? It's like 10% more damage if you have an insane ring. And then if you replace the insane ring with a reasonable ring that is not Calandred, it's only 3 million damage less. So it's absolutely not necessary to have the insane mirrored ring.
Which is good to know going into this league, knowing that we won't have them.
I anointed practical application? That doesn't seem right. What did I have anointed that they removed?
Maybe you just didn't have the oils. Just used what you had.
I just need dex for this item real quick. Let me just have 20% less damage just so I can use my items. Yeah, maybe I really wanted the stun.
I mean, 20% less is better than 100% less.
Yeah, so I even with an anoint that doesn't make any sense, 57 million average hit per golem. Yep. Probably 6 golems.
All right. What was everybody else league starting, by the way? I forget that.
I'm doing Explosive Trapper. Yeah, I asked you guys, but no one told me, and you told me. And I said I was going to go Explosive Trap, Boss Killer League start. I really want to do Saboteur for the first 2 Ascendancies, but then it's better to go Trickster, so I'm like debating whether I'll start Trickster right away. Probably, because I don't want to save up the refunds.
Yeah, I guess I'll start there, since I honestly assumed you already went over
this.
Yeah,
you have to catch up on talking time.
So, last league, I did not league start Magic Find, and I kind of did the league before that with Poison Tornado Shot. So, I think my community, being a kind of a Magic Find community, was bustling for me to return to the glories of trying to set up a Magic Find league starter. In the case of Poison Tornado Shot, it was a little bit aimed at later in the league start process. Like it might be something you would switch to, in the first week. But in the case of this time, I am trying to push the limits, putting my reputation on the line a little bit by seeing how weak we can make a character and pull it off in maps with some Magic Find. Quite a bit of Magic Find, actually. It's going to be Toxic Rain, the one I'm centering it around in this case.
That should be good to start with.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll wait for some of the comments to come in.
Is one of my my all-time favorite skills. I believe Toxic Rain was the first and only character that I played to level 99 in SSF Hardcore.
Well, I know I'm doing things very, very safe by choosing Toxic Rain. I mean, nobody's going to say it's a bad league start skill, obviously, but trying to pair it with a whole bunch of MF gear could be precarious, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that being difficult to force the MF into it. But, you know, sooner or later. Are you going to use Val Caustic Arrow in that build?
My
Or no,
plan...
you're poison.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Plan is to switch to Caustic Arrow. I have a little bit of beef with Caustic Arrow as a leveling skill. I really am not a big fan of its performance. I don't think... a lot of people love it. I think it just doesn't quite do enough damage.
Well, it depends on how fast you go, right? Like, if you
Well,
are
yeah,
slow and you
and-
kill everything on the way, then usually it keeps up in level.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are
But,
certain points in the leveling process it feels better than others, and you can always pair it up with, like, you know, Ballista with Toxic Rain or something. But I really like the way Caustic Arrow feels once you beef the build up a little bit and do scale some things, and then suddenly it goes from feeling like, man, this skill's doing just almost enough damage to feel good, to like, oh my god, why would I ever play any other skill? This thing's just completely mopping the floor with everything. And that it just happens very quickly, all of a sudden. Basically, well, in the past, it would be when you get like a double dot multi quiver and the hunter crafted bow, and, you know, a nice +1 or +2 amulet, and a corrupted +2 chest, and, you know, if you do any number of those things, it's gonna feel magical.
And I feel like having the Val version of Caustic Arrow is like a, you know, like a cheat code to access that power level of, oh my god, why do I ever play anything else, like, early on, just for a couple of seconds, but it's there.
It really is one of those Val skills that is like eye popping. Like you want to praise GGG for making that gem. Absolutely.
Right.
And
And then
60 million average hit in the POB. It's better than it was. All right. I mentioned briefly my league starter earlier. If you want me to elaborate,
you may reiterate on it.
My plan is lightning warp, go fast. So you may have seen build of the week, tornado shot that triggers 10 lightning warps per second. I was like, we can do better than that. We can soul eater lightning warp and be completely uncontrollable.
Wow.
And it uses Beacon of Madness for corpse explosions, and then it's like, well, Beacon of Madness slowly applies a bunch of debuffs to you that are really debilitating. Well, it's not really an issue if you clear the entire map in under 20 seconds, right? Because then it doesn't really have time to build up the debuff stacks. And then they're like, oh, we're getting rid of the Lightning Warp helmet enchant, so I'm really hoping that there's a way to get reduced Lightning Warp duration, and if there isn't, the new Frostblink of Wintry Blast is now my backup plan. It should be more controllable and do twice as much damage. So that seems pretty good.
This one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come in a second there. I've seen the lightning warp stuff, like with tornado shot and things. That is, you know, for somebody who needs for speed, that is quite an interesting looking build. I've never actually done.
Yeah, that build costs like 3 mirrors now. And so my build costs like 5 chaos. So I'm like,
yeah,
try to you know,
cost of the build isn't that big of a factor for me. I just for whatever reason I hadn't gone through with it, but it does seem like something I would do.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the 3 mirrors. Like the quality of life, the controllability, the damage. Their version is definitely superior. My version is approximate that as cheaply as I can and try to maximize the fun factor. That's the goal here.
Does your version have any reduced or increased chance of acquiring epilepsy?
I haven't played a build that's this fast, theoretically. Like if you have 20 lightning warps per second and it's instant and it's all the way to the edge of the screen, that's 20 screens per second that you're teleporting. I truly do not know what that looks like.
It looks like it's going to give you a seizure.
Now, if we switch to Frostblink, then you have significantly less epilepsy because the warp length is much shorter.
Even if it's still really quick, it'll be more like a little smoother to move across the screen.
Also, the base cast time is longer. So, like 15 lightning warps per second will translate to like 12 Frostblinks per second. But it does twice as much damage, so that's a worthwhile trade-off.
So you could have like the ultimate stutter step.
Like by the time you get 100 Soul Eater stacks, you already won't be able to tell where you're going or what you're aiming at.
Yep.
And I just really wanted to fulfill my desire. I've done builds that are really tanky. I've done builds that do ridiculous amounts of damage. I've done builds that have really good QOL. I've only done one build that was really fast, and it relied on the poison sextant that's been removed. And now I just have a hankering for a really, really stupidly fast build.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of poison, and you were talking about gems earlier. Did you guys catch on to some of the hype around Caustic Arrow of poison?
Oh my god.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the mentions.
All damage can
poison.
poison.
That was one of the things you mentioned. Okay, you already talked about it.
Completely enables it. It's so good when you can just easily shotgun 5 hits, and each of those 5 hits has a giant poison from all hits. All damage with hits can poison.
I'm pretty sure you overlap like 9 to 11, depending on your area. Not 5. It's huge.
Yeah, I was thinking like low investment. Like your league, somehow you get this gem on League Start, and you have like
I think with the 20% AoE mastery, it's already 11. If you use volley instead of GMP.
I thought
it might
volley
be
was
leaps and
worse
bounds better than. Sorry.
Even with like 13 projectiles at very point blank range, they all overlap. I guess
Almost
with enough
all of them,
AoE
yes.
and volley, then the distance wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it's great. It looks great. It's probably on my list of the safest League starts you could do is going to be that Poison Ballista thing.
It'll still be okay, insane. Even if you're using the regular gem. It just won't be as good as the alt gem.
Yep.
Well, Balor, your League starter must be SRS because it just keeps getting better and better.
I mean, technically SRS got slightly nerfed this league. Okay.
Oh my god.
Wait, I'm going to upset some people. I'm seeing a lot, and I mean a lot, of like Guardian SRS over Poison SRS. And I'm going to upset someone because I feel like it's being super disingenuous to everybody who's looking at those builds. Because most of them, in most cases, have been showcased and tested up to the Eater and Exarch quest invitations, which for the people playing those builds and showing them to you is day one. And Guardian is better. The Guardian hit is better than Necromancer on day one. Significantly better. But as soon as you can do the initial scuffed swap to poison, and I'm talking you're still using a chance to poison gem, you've got garbage jewels that only have chance to poison and no other stat, and you've got just the weapon, no covenant, no Aminamahu's gaze, no nothing. As soon as you do that first poison swap, which is literally 100 chaos worth of investment on day 2, you deal 3 times as much damage as the Guardian. It jumps from way below to way in front, and it stays in front until you invest about 200 divines to catch the Guardian up. Because we hit poison cap pretty easily. At around 50 to 80 divines, we hit poison cap, and then we can't really get more damage than that. Eventually, 200 to 300 divines in, the Guardian finally catches up, and then can eventually overtake it again. That is outside of the range of most players. I feel like everybody's getting debated into Guardian. I don't like the build. I don't think it's right. I think Necromancer is better.
To be fair, though, like a lot of the people that do get debated, for them getting to the first Atlas Stones is way more than just day one.
Yes.
Like if you're a new player getting baited by that, then you're going to be happy with playing it for the first week, because that is how long you take until you get to the point where you notice that the other one would have been better.
Yes, and for any short form leagues, I would also pick Guardian. If I'm going to do a 1 week event or like a 3-day race event, or if I'm racing to just the quest completions, Guardian is significantly better early. Significantly. But that doesn't make Necro bad. Necro was still good anyway. This just came out being better, right? And so it still did everything fine. It just, the Guardian became better, mostly because of the big fiery boy, who is unmistakably the best leveling experience you can possibly have on a league start. He is ridiculous. But he falls
where
off.
Was it again on the? Wasn't it on the Gladiator or somewhere for the Crankled Passes event?
I don't know, but
so silly.
There's a lot of hype around the Guardian, and I feel bad that I feel like people are going to get debated into playing Guardian over Necromancer because it looks so much better in the first initial setup stage, which it is. I'm not trying to be like, oh, we keep up. We don't keep up. Right? Not until we change poison. They're doing 3 million DPS in bullshit gear, and we're doing 1.5. Half. But as soon as you change to poison, they go and you put the same amount of investment in Guardian, they go from 3 mil to 3.3 mil because it's almost linear scaling the whole way. And we go from 1.5 mil to 9 mil with like almost no investment. Like day 2, day 3, that sword's worth like 30 chaos. Like, it's very easy to just instantly outstrip the Guardian, and it is very expensive to get the Guardian's power back up to match poison again. Very expensive. I just don't think it's. I just think it's bait. I don't like it.
Right.
Okay, I got a question for you guys.
Oh, you got a question for us?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and Balor especially will be interested in this one. Calm, Spirit, Nerf, the gloves. Did we talk about that at all?
We didn't.
Oh.
The rage gloves is that.
I'm happy.
Rage, they generate rage over regen. You are? Whoa. I want to hear your take.
Just
tell me your hot
the
take.
Fact that you could put that on and Vitality and nothing else was maybe too good.
I hated the rage setup for our Deadeyes. I used it, but I pushed against using it when it first came out because I didn't like it. I played like half a league when everyone else was using it without using it because I didn't like it. And then once I started using it, it was stronger and I had to keep using it, but I hated it the whole time. It did just... why? How? It was so little investment for so much ridiculous power, speed, movement speed, everything, that it was just a default forced had to. And I mean, had to the point where even when I'm trying to stack literally 2 mirrors worth of magic find gear onto my Deadeye, I still couldn't use Sedemas. When I'm 2 mirrors deep into a magic find character that's supposed to build the most amount of quant and the most amount of rarity that I could possibly get, I still couldn't take the rage gloves off. That's how strong they were. I don't like it.
Just kind of... Here, let me help out the community a little bit here. I know Catmaster pulled up the screen on here. Some of you guys watching might have missed this. It was nerfed by a factor of 3x. It says regenerate 1 rage per second for 300 life recovery. It used to be 100, and so that was some pretty insane rage regen it gave. And I don't know. I think this is a nerf primarily to ranged builds because melee generally has more, creative ways to get rage into their build. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and a level 20 vitality was 193 life regen, so you could just throw 1 aura on and get 2 rage per second.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how Snoo feels, but my experience is rage was fine and usable at about 400 life per second, but it felt good at 8. Eight was usually my goal.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, I actually forgot what rage felt like at 300 or 400 per second until I started trying to put it together on my Toxic Rain character for League Starter. And incidentally, I'm still using these gloves for the League Starter. I think it'll be fun. I'll be like the only content creator who's suggesting anybody uses these for the entire league still. One of the reasons is because how much do you think these gloves are going to cost next league?
Oh, like 2 chaos at best.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a really early league start scenario, I think they'll actually be quite powerful for 2 chaos gloves anyway. And yeah, what Juices said about the vitality, absolutely. It's kind of crazy how you can just throw in a vitality gem or you used to be able to get over 2 rage per second. But I will push back a little bit on the idea that there's almost no sacrifice. There's kind of an indirect sacrifice, of course. If you put a vitality gem on, you're cutting into your reservation efficiency. If you're getting 1,000 or more life per second, that's now 1,000 or more life per second you don't have, and if you like, just imagine a world where you had 10 rage per second and 1,000 life per second at the same time. So I mean, in my opinion, that is a little bit of a sacrifice, but I do agree that they were perhaps a bit overpowered.
Yeah, the opportunity cost seemed too easy. I'm happy that they're gone. I'm happy to put my quant gloves back on again, to be honest. But I don't know. You can start wearing them. I think you're going to abandon them within a few days. Because really, to have enough rage for it to feel good, you needed 800 life before. You want about 8 rage per second for it to feel good.
So
now you need
2,400 life per second.
Yeah,
easy.
now you need 2,400 regen to reach that same amount of rage regen. And then even if you could do that, let's just say you found a way to get 2,400 life regen. The opportunity cost of giving up 800 regen for rage is a lot lower than the opportunity cost for giving up 2,400 regen for rage.
Right.
So,
you were talking about how, quote unquote, feels good to have 8 rage per second. I literally took a stopwatch out and timed my berserk uptime if I used it on cooldown with these gloves with 9 rage per second, and it was around 70% uptime, maybe like 71, 72%. And then I did the exact same test with only 3 rage per second to replicate the nerf, and it was still like 49, 50% uptime on berserk because of the nature of how that gem works. It really surprised me and kind of reshaped
more than I would have thought.
Yeah, it kind of reshaped my thoughts on what is a necessary amount of regen. Like,
I'm curious.
The rage bar sits at almost empty the entire time, but it's still, the math is the math. It's there.
Yep.
To me, it was always. I never invested heavily enough to have really good berserk uptime. I was always just like, if I can get one source of 0.01 rage regen, then my build will eventually reach 50 rage, and that's a huge buff for very little investment. That's what I got out of it. So I'm curious what the berserk uptime is on 1 rage regen per second. I would assume it's not that good, but it's still, reasonable to like use it on a map boss or something.
Yeah, it's still probably 25% or more.
Which is really good for a glove slot and an aura.
Well, I actually agree with you on the idea of taking it the different route with just going for max rage. I think you get more out of it. If you're all the way down to 1 rage per second, you're probably going to get more out of the build overall if you don't use berserk. You free up a gem slot too at the same time.
Just keep the 50 rage that you earn. And just
we forget how good 50 rage is in general.
Honestly, I don't mind
all kinds of buffs.
If you can get in the new, like on the new charms, if you can get 1 rage per hit, like every 1.5 seconds or something on one of the new charms, insane. Like, it's part of your ascendancy. You don't have to, there's no opportunity cost other than another charm mod. That's a lot of power for 1 mod on 1 charm.
That would be very cool. I mean, there's a lot. We haven't seen all the charms yet, so there could be anything. Like, they had you cannot go below base movement speed. Like, that one's insane. Like, they've got gain flask charges. Like, that's insane.
Like, yeah, but it's always like with any announcement, it's so hard to gauge like whether they're gonna show us the good ones or the mediocre ones or the the not so powerful
I'm
ones.
reasonably
I'm curious
certain
what they still
that
have.
there's going to be a rage on hit one. If nothing else, because my experience in Sanctum, I did not play enough Sanctum to farm really good relics. I think I got exactly 2 relics from Sanctum. That's how little I played. And I got my first relic that dropped was AoE % increased and rage on hit. And then I put Mage Bane on that. And that was the only relic I used.
Like the super, super strong part of that ascendancy isn't rage on hit, because there's a lot of ways to get that. It's the +10 maximum rage. So it's really easy to put that on a charm without the maximum rage and just be like, see a weaker version for the charm. And now anyone can generate some rage, but you only get the 50. That's fine.
Yeah, I just thought, like, as one like suffix on one charm, any amount of rage regen is very, very good, or rage on hit, because that build was a caster, but it had rage on hit, and it just got movement speed, I think is what I used it for, and that was still good.
It's fine. I'll take
10% movement speed on a relic is still good.
Yeah.
All right, now, did you guys catch the cast on crit Warlord's Mark stuff that's going around the community now?
I did.
Warlord's Mark specifically, or is it the new mark?
Warlord's Mark for rage.
Oh, for rage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is something I worked on a great deal about a week ago, and it started with me seeing a video of Rutu. This is old tech, apparently. Rutu was doing it on one of his cast on crit Forbidden Right builds. He also plugged in Warlord's Mark, and it's through Manaforge arrows, which seems really strange that Manaforge arrows would work with cast on crit, because it's like, a cast on kind of thing, double cast on, which don't normally, we're not allowed to do that, like with ballistas, traps, and totems and stuff. But in this case, it works.
I was completely unaware of this mod on Warlord's Mark that grants 20 rage regen over 1 second when you stun an enemy that's marked. I can see that working really well.
Yep.
Yeah, the problem is that the real breakthrough, though, issue for bow builds anyway, generally, is any hit that is eligible to freeze basically cannot stun, and that freeze takes priority over stun. And so this was tripping me up for a while. And then I realized I needed to take on the stat you cannot freeze anymore, whatever that had to be, through Gale Sight Helm or Secrets of Suffering. And suddenly, when I went into maps with that setup, I had all the rage in the world. I had the equivalent of about 50 rage per second because of the Deadeye's focal point, increase effective marks, effect stat, and there's no internal cooldown. You get to double up, so you literally get like 50 rage a second in a juicy map situation.
Insane.
Yeah, but that's what the build has, like 100% crit chance and all that stuff. Anyway, who's interested in that can look that up, but it's out there. There's more than one person who is interested in that, I can assure you.
Yeah, that's super cool. So it's only, you need 2 gem slots, I suppose. For
all right, so it's a 5 link effectively. It's Manaforge, arrows, cast on crit, Warlord's Mark, and it needs life tap to have high uptime, because life tap and Manaforge arrows allows it to go off on cooldown, as opposed to with the mana cost restraint attached to it. So you're bypassing the typical cast rate of the Manaforge arrow. And that's 4 gems there. The 5th one needs to be your damage ability, whatever arrow you're firing off.
Usually frenzy.
I need to test that a little bit. It wouldn't be nearly as good as, say, probably Tornado Shot, which would pump more arrows out more consistently and hit more targets more consistently. But Lightning Arrow and in
a 5 link, I'm picturing Rain of Arrows, like just because it's really easy to cast on crit Rain of Arrows.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, but that has issues with range. If you're already off screening a lot of stuff, that's not going to work very well. But if you're not off screening stuff, that will.
Yeah, I was picturing on-screening stuff with it, so yeah. Tornado Shot seems really good for off-screening.
I think like Lightning Arrow and then the 6th gem being returned projectiles is actually pretty solid because you get a lot of really long distance crits and they'd be going off there. But my favorite link was Tornado Shot with Tornado. And this actually allows you to get cast on crit Tornado into a build, whether it's, like if it's a traditional Tornado Shot build, you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to get the Warlord's Mark in there, and then also Tornado for the even more single target. Just absolutely ridiculous.
Man, don't make me want to start bows again. I'm trying to do bossing in a private league. I'm
in the same boat.
Out of my comfort zone.
If you like SSF bows, you're gonna suffer.
Oh no, I could SSF bows, no problem.
Like League Start for boss killing, though.
Well, as long as I don't have to do Uber bosses, I can do all the regular ones. No problem.
I feel like there's a way to the way that I'm thinking of doing it and the correct way to do it are leagues apart.
No, I could definitely kill all the regular bosses in solo self-found as a bow build.
If you have like a good strategy for like getting good bow gear and using the correct skills at the correct time and everything, like having it all planned out, as opposed to me going in being like, okay, I'm SSF, I'm using a bow skill, I need to get a bow somehow. I don't have a plan. You will suffer.
I don't know if I would suggest solo self-found bows to people at random, but I am saying I would be able to do it because I'm familiar enough with bows. I've played them enough times. I know the whole plan from front to back.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't call it like noob friendly or anything. Not for solo self-found. Like it's definitely doable if you already know the whole plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in the case of this tech here, I mean, it feeds into itself. If you can't freeze, that probably means you can brittle, which means you would actually be getting the crit chance you need, even in an SSF situation when your gear is trash in the very beginning. All you need is gems. You can just buy them from the vendor, and you don't even need the quality, I don't think, specifically for this one.
So, knowing nothing about this, I'm like, okay, so I want to do this. I want to use Warlord's Mark with Mana Forged Arrows, and I also, in order to not freeze, I need to get brittle. So in my mind, that means I either need to do Heist and get the amulet that gives you brittle, or I need to do Delirium to get Secrets of Suffering as a small cluster jewel keystone. And those are the only two sources of that I know how to do. And I'm like, okay, both of those are a miserable grind on a SSF bow build that doesn't have any of the setup that I want.
Yeah, there's a helmet as well.
That's a good point. I don't know what the tier of the helmet is. Do you guys know? Gale sight?
Oh, that item? No. I always just assumed it was really low tier because I kept finding them and they were 1C.
Yeah, I think that doesn't mean common. Anything. I'm pretty sure it's common. It's never been on my loot filter, I can promise you that.
If I was planning it in solo self-found, I would have highlighted that and assumed that would be my starting point and that I would get the jewel at some point and swap out of the helmet into that.
I think that's probably the right move. There you go. The viewer's got a plan now.
There, you have a better plan than the one that I thought of in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you would have been there chain farming Delirium and would have just dropped the helmet randomly, picked it up and be like, what is this trash? And just dropped it back on the ground, continued trying to find that blasted.
See, that's the other thing. Other people are like, yeah, I could farm a specific tier 3 unique in SSF. And I'm like, no, because my strategy, like, I just out and go and I have no plan. So it would be years before I found this helmet.
Like solo self-found, anything tier 3 or below, if it's needed for your build, very easy. You should be able to farm it early and in white maps just by doing Ruckus. If it's tier 2 or tier 1 or tier 0, good luck. I can't help you. I don't know enough about solo self-found for that. But anything common enough to be tier 3 or below, you can definitely just Ruckus farm it. It might take you a day.
From what I've heard from
say
Lighty,
Ruckus?
Yeah. Ruckus is spawn a bunch of exiles that are ghost possessed.
Oh, right. Yeah, the exiles, right.
Yeah, so that's how you get a bunch of trash uniques. From from the very little that I've gleaned from Lighty, from being on a podcast with Lighty a lot, if you're farming a very specific unique, the best strategy is divination card heists for stack decks to get the full set of the card for that unique. Because like he was like, I'm farming every unique, I'm collection logging every unique, and even trying to get like that specific unique, and there is a specific farming strategy for that specific unique, like farming this map gives you the div card for it, it was still better to farm stack decks and heists.
Well, I see somebody in chat mentioned Meticulous Appraiser. Isn't that going to be a pretty solid way to farm up uniques for SSF?
Oh, it should be. Yeah.
So kudos to the chat.
Good call.
There. Yeah. That is a good idea. I've never really tried to use it because I hate the way it gets in the way of quantity. But if you were explicitly farming for trash uniques, I mean, I can't think of a much better way. Yeah. There's a major downside, of course, to this, which kind of should mention. I know that. I know at some point some comments would be said. If you went for this tech, you would lose freeze. So that gets under a lot of people's skin, even people who have a great deal of confidence in their bow abilities. We use freeze as a major crutch for survivability, but I think it's not going to be that bad.
I think this gives you so much berserk uptime that you won't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
In the case of Secrets of Suffering, you also get sap into your build, which would be even more a massive damage reduction as well.
And I mean, I think Scorch isn't irrelevant, especially as a tri-Ellie build.
Oh yeah, if you just have a tri-Ellie bow and you're going for just straight up elemental hit damage, Scorch is pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The Secrets of Suffering is definitely the better route of the two between the helm and that. I'd say I just use the helm as a crutch, as Balor mentioned earlier.
The idea of SSF farming leadership's price or whatever the amulet is.
Nah, pass.
It has to be the correct roll.
Yep, not pass. Thanks.
Yeah, Secrets of Suffering is a lot more achievable.
Yeah. I just don't want to heist, and I don't want to heist, and you can't make me.
It is the quest heist though, so you do all the quests and you don't actually do any heists, and then you just do caches in maps until you get the correct quest heist that gives you the leadership's prize.
I don't even want to enter the Rogue Harbor.
I feel like that's more accessible to me, the person that like doesn't do a chain of 100 maps in a row.
Well, if you're familiar with heist, what do you make of the changes that are taking place to heist? I don't have my head wrapped around it. I don't normally heist, but I bet a lot of people are thinking about doing heist.
Lady talked about it in the podcast. He was like, well, now so there's no specific grand heists that give a specific reward. It's every grand heist is a grand heist, and then it has random rewards at the end. So what this means is people that super target farmed specific grand heists are kind of screwed. And in Trade League, everyone running random grand heists, and then you suddenly get like a really good, I don't know, experimented base, or I don't remember the other reward. Like you can just get a really good trinket randomly. So in Trade League, it means a greater volume of obscure items. If you're not in Trade League buying a Grand Heist reward, and you're trying to farm a specific Grand Heist reward, it's bad for you.
I want to know how much the Simplex Amulet is going to cost as a base next league.
We're just assuming at least 5 Divines, just for a base.
At least.
I'm just assuming I want it on every character.
I think we might be witnessing the greatest buff to an item in history, basically, with this item, and people don't really realize it.
It just makes it so easy to craft a good item.
I wonder if you can annul the one prefix, benchcraft, suffixes cannot be changed, and veil Chaos Orb that into just a free, literally free veiled prefix. That will almost certainly roll life, if not something useful for your build.
I mean,
it's just so easy to guarantee. Like, you only need 3 mods, right? You can guarantee one with an essence and then another with a benchcraft. And then if you have the currency to metamod stuff, then you could probably mess with the veiled version as well.
You can guarantee 2 with the Awaken Orb Slam.
Yeah,
we're already your suffixes.
Awaken Orb Slam, regardless of what you're going for, is going to be, if we assume that there's 2 Simplex amulets and we assume a price of 5 divines at minimum, then that's
you only need
a
one
minimum
for
of 15
Awaken Orbs.
divines just to attempt it.
You only need 1 for Awakening Orbs, right? The first item you click just has to be another amulet.
That's a good
Any
point.
amulet.
Yeah, right.
It would be any amulet.
I already know. I already have this planned out. I'm going to have a 22% mana reservation, 20% quant, plus 2 chaos gems amulet, and the only hard part of that craft is the 1 in 3 annul. The plus 2 chaos gems is deterministic. It's a 100% chance to happen on the Reforged Chaos. With that, in that particular case, if you do the Redeemer Shaper Slam, like you have choices there, but that would be absolutely nutty. Free easy mode craft.
Yeah, who cares about like 100 life on an amulet when you can have that?
Yeah, you get 120% damage while leeching. Benchcraft.
Jesus.
If you want.
Oh, mind throwing speed. Huge.
Oh yeah, there are a bunch of
huge
obscure crafts on amulets that no one ever used because they weren't good, and now you can just boost them to hell.
Oh yeah.
Mind throwing speed is insane.
They took away like a bunch of mind throwing speed this league as well. They didn't though. I'm just gonna take it all back from my amulets. All right.
I'm curious.
So,
about that.
did we talk
That
about
might be
Righteous
something
Fire?
For my trapper to do. Before we do that, just one real quick thing. I want to talk about Ultimatum, because I think Balor and I, since Ultimatum didn't go core, have mentioned Ultimatum on more podcasts than not, and said that we want it back, not because we like the Trial Master that much, not because we like the rewards or the mechanic itself, but just because it freezes time in the middle of your map, and it allows you to read your chat and to answer to donations.
And to not die from some random off-screen projectile while you're trying to figure out what the league mechanic is.
True.
That too.
Imagine if they, after all this waiting, reintroduced it and took out the time pause.
I'll be so mad. You have no idea. I'll be standing up, ranting and yelling in my microphone if I do my first Ultimatum.
How are you supposed
to all-time Reddit post?
I'll be so mad. You've no idea. I'm looking forward to the freeze so much. If it's not there, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, you're probably gonna. The very first freeze, you're just gonna stand up and bow to the computer, right? And just let sit on that screen for 5 minutes. Go get a drink and
praise. Spam praise in all caps.
I'll be tempted to put my keyboard through my monitor if the map doesn't freeze. I'm just gonna be so upset.
It'd be the big troll. Someone in chat said I'll demand a refund for the game.
Oh yeah, maybe this is also, I don't know whether they're memeing or not, but like someone in chat said waiting to see people walk around with level 40 auras on their amulets. And I think
that doesn't scale.
Something we have to.
No, that doesn't scale.
That modifier does not scale.
It either grants you an aura or it doesn't grant you an aura. If it's 100% increased modifier magnitude, it grants you the aura twice. Congratulations.
So it can grant you 2 level 23 haste auras at the same time? Dang.
If only you could put them
you can only use one of them.
Great.
There was a way to get 2 copies of a mod that stacked. So like the classic example is on shaped weapons. You could get 2 different copies of crit chance, I believe, and it would combine to like level 40 crit chance. And I'm pretty sure that was just a visual thing. It didn't actually do that.
Yeah, the actual support was still just the one level 20. It just said 40 on the weapon.
Oh, we were talking about Ultimatum a second ago.
So even if you could get an item that had like grants level 40 or something because you have 2 mods or a doubled mod, it's visual only. It doesn't actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we jumped back from Ultimatum to
back
the
to
Simplex
Ultimatum.
Amulet because of a question in chat.
Yeah, sorry.
There was a need for
I wanted to get
clarification.
I wanted to get your guys' take on their decision to remove loot from Ultimatum monster kills, like entirely.
Weird, but I was
about
going to
that?
hide it anyway, so who cares?
Fair enough.
Even ritual drops some loot, but I guess it's like severely.
I feel like it's
amount
a
of loot.
way to make, it's a way to balance it so that they can make the actual reward better, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if Ultimatum is the new way to get catalysts and the mobs drop loot, then it's basically, okay, Ultimatum is a catalyst and occasional divine generator, and then you just get loot from all the Ultimatum mobs. This is like, now we can make it so that it actually has a consistently insane reward at like tier 10 Ultimatum, because the average loot is lower from having the mobs not drop anything. They can make the upper end of rewards absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I hope that's true. And if that's true, then I'm a fan. But if not, then
yeah, to
I
me,
don't know.
it's
Did
a
they drop
catalyst
that
generator.
much before?
I'm gonna get up to like 4 levels deep in the encounter, and it's gonna offer a catalyst as a reward, and I'm just gonna take that every time.
I'm gonna be looking for 6 links.
But how about you, Snoo? Because I can imagine someone who focuses on magic find and who wants to scale quantity and rarity of items that drop from monsters in your map. You are probably not too fond of the idea?
Well, yeah, for general strategies that revolve around Magic Find, I'm certainly not going to include Ultimatum in there, but I am interested in seeing what it's like. I'll probably do like one of those 100 map sessions and just go straight up 100 maps of Ultimatum and seeing what kind of rewards you get overall and posting that to the community. I'm sure that'll be helpful for a lot of players. I remember I enjoyed Ultimatum. It was my first league, by the way. That was the very first league that I played, was Ultimatum. And I stumbled onto what Nemesis 3 farming was later on in that league. And I do remember looking forward to Ultimatum primarily for the Nemesis 3 loot, I think. Not so much for the overall core loot. But yeah, seeing it just shower with currency after that is something that I still miss, at least a little bit.
I think that was purely NEM 3. I think without NEM 3, they didn't really drop that much. Like, I don't think it's a huge deal to have removed that.
Yeah, but it was a really good way to generate like a shit ton of rare monsters in your map.
Yeah.
While I am nostalgic about it, I am in the camp that suggests that Nemesis 3 was kind of bad for the game overall.
Oh, 100%.
And
I did it
better off for it.
I did it often, and sometimes I still miss it, but it was the right choice that it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining that many rares with a headhunter being like Legion League.
Oh yeah, it was
2 billion life on a character or something. You can only see their toe.
Right. Well, one thing we haven't heard from Snoo yet is like, what are you planning to generate your currency with on League Start? What mechanics do you focus on instead of Ultimatum? Obviously,
that is the question, right? Once again, sorry for missing out on that conversation when it happened. So in my case, the last couple leagues straight, I've promoted the idea of leveling is a Wandering Path strat. I think it's been caught on by the community at large. Not just me, but some of us have, including Valor, I think, has taken kindly to the idea of Wandering Path Atlas completion strategies, where you basically start off going straight for Wandering Path and you focus on getting 100% increased chance of adjacent maps to drop. And essentially every single map will drop you another map that you may or may not have already completed. And also go for the Keurig mission chance. And between those two things, Keurig missions and adjacent maps dropping right and left, you almost basically never need to purchase a map on trade, or even in some cases rarely have to run the same map twice. It's quite phenomenal for very quickly opening your atlas up. And it feeds in directly, incredibly well, to an Exarch altar farming strat, because that's also a Wandering Path strat. And you basically just sub out some adjacent map nodes for, things like growing hordes and Exarch altars. There's a very little in the way of respecking to go from one to the other. And then you unlock the wonder of gem cutter prisms and orbs of regret, orbs of unmaking, chaos orbs, all the eldritch currencies from Exarch. Just your reigning currency at that point, and you're just making tons of currency very, very early in the league. But of course, that you want to swap out from there. So in this case, I'm going to do what I just mentioned, and then for this league, I made a character designed to magic find as fast as possible with Enraged Strongbox. May not be the most interesting or exciting strat there is, but I just want to see how fast I can get on that train, start farming some uniques that are worth a lot of currency in the first couple days, get some doctor cards from burial chambers or brothers gifts from cemetery, wherever I'm at. That's my plan.
I just want to mention Wandering Path has good synergy if you want to farm Legion for currency. Specifically Legion, a lot of the notables are like +10 encounter chance or 1% like duplicate or something. And the small passives leading up to those notables are about the same magnitude. So if you just double them, that one in particular, like, yeah, you're going 4% to 8%, and then you save 1 point to not get the 10% one. A lot of the time,
and you effectively only miss on 2.
Yeah, the small notables, like even if you go to the bottom right of the tree, there's one that gives like a 10% Legion encounter chance or something, if I remember correctly. Closer to the harvest one to the left.
The 3 small nodes that get increased chance. I think it's 8% per small
10%, node. And then 4%, 4%, 4%. So you actually get more. That 12 doubles to 24 instead of the 22 that you would have gotten by getting that whole wheel.
And you save a point.
I've done strats with this with magic finding, trying to get a Legion to spawn automatically on your map. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can get up to 72% chance to spawn a Legion plus 8 natural for a combined 80% chance to spawn a Legion every map, if I'm not mistaken. If you take every single one of those points that you mentioned.
Yeah, so the only reason I'm not doing Wandering Path is because I really need Unveiled Flask, and I don't feel like buying it from someone else for some reason. I just really like the node that gives 10 intelligence for betrayal per map. I just really, really like that node.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that node in particular, I would be running Wandering Path.
A lot of mechanics have some kind of notable that essentially gets bricks the mechanic if you can't take the large notable. I know Harvest is one of those that you really, really need to be able to take the large notables. But some favor Wandering Path, like you said. Legion is one. Strongbox is absolutely another one.
Oh yeah, I like the Strongbox nodes. I don't invest enough into it for it to be worth it, but occasionally I'll find a Diviner's Strongbox and I'll just be really happy.
I also think shrines work really well on Wandering Path.
You just get better shrine chance.
Duration. Yeah.
Duration, and especially, yeah.
If you want more shrines, you can always put Domination on.
Yeah, so one interesting league strat actually would revolve around Wandering Path with shrines, and then wear the Gull Helm, and then put a Gloom Shrine on your map, and you have essentially like almost a 3-minute Gloom Shrine on every map.
I love that. I've done that before. It's so nice.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I did that, but I always think about that and think, man, that's so much ridiculous borrowed power.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
crazy. You can get a Gloom
that.
Shrine on the Sextant modifier, right? Like a guaranteed
Yes.
Gloom Shrine.
Very common result from rolling sextants as well.
Yeah, because it's considered one of the failed ones too, so it's also very cheap to buy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only cheap to buy; it's cheap to buy elevated, where you get a complete additional extra shrine. Now, I say what I said, but actually, I am planning to use the Gloom Shrine in my League starter because what I'm doing with magic finding and having, a build that's kind of barely stand on its own 2 feet and still magic find, I'm going to be using the Nico's Pact with Energy, and maybe you can scroll over that, Mesa. That's a nice tool for
Pact with Energy
players to
is
use.
also one of my
it's
favorite
great for
ones.
League start, and one should remind the community about this node. If you throw in a Sulfite Scarab or Nico through the Sextant as an alternate option, you get to have an immense amount of player power in every map just by clicking those Sulfite veins. And so I'm doing that, as well as forcing a Gloom Shrine on the map, running shrines, specking shrines, of course. And between those two things, I mean, you can make basically a non-functioning character function quite well.
One question. The Gloom Shrine, does it have its own damage, or is that because the increased damage from Pact with Energy, does that scale the Gloom Shrine explosions then?
I think it does.
I guess it's based on the monster life. It's like the same as the Occultist explosions, right? So
yeah, it's the same as Occultist explosion sort of thing. It's based on their life, but it does scale with your damage, but only damage that would affect it. So generic increased damage.
Increased damage is a generic increase, so like works for explosions, works for unspecified damage, works for Bear Trap, which is neither a spell nor an attack, as we all know. No, Pact with Energy is really good. It's like especially SSF or HC, but also like I've never heard of anyone like praise it as much as you do in softcore trade, but I mean you definitely recognize the value of it for a build that
usually overcome its power pretty quickly, but if you're struggling early, it's like it's borrowed power you can throw into a build that doesn't.
Even if you're not struggling, if you're just like hopping ahead, or you got your occasional hard map, or you want to do a boss, like I mean, like a what they're called, Conqueror. I just feel like if you're unsure, you pop that in, and getting 45% increased move speed, even if you already have a decent amount, is still like very noticeably more mobility when you're trying to attack, move around.
I also want to point out this has very good synergy. So we talked about this node makes it so that a very bad struggling character can actually clear maps very well because this is so powerful. I've also found in my years of leveling very poorly equipped meme characters that leveling in Delve is more consistent than leveling in maps because there's a lot fewer randomly danger spike things. Like the level of danger in map level Delve is very consistent. So
I have the same feeling about Heist, and I use Heist for that purpose. Because with Heist, you can pick, more so even than with Delve, you can pick the tile sets that you want, and every tile set has a very, very limited set of monsters that you can spawn. So in terms of like what muscle memory you need to have ready to like move and dodge things, it's very, very simple and predictable.
So if you're planning the character with like the worst possible leveling setup, like your build requires Stormfire to ignite or something, so you can't equip it until level 80, and you're just suffering until level 80. Packed with Energy and level in Delve as well, and it'll be an easier experience.
Yeah, I'll keep it in mind. Like I said, I personally have always done Heist leveling when maps were too scary for me, but I'll try Delve one of these days. Well, now that we're in the part where we give advice to fellow players and then point out some caveats, I'm sure Balor has another public service announcement. Maybe
I don't have anything.
Forgot about it.
I don't remember what did we talk about?
You had a video warning people of one unknown factor that we don't know for sure yet, but assuming, based on the fact that gem quality is massively better than it was before and provides bigger bonuses, and there was also a recipe removed that allowed you to flip your gems from level 20 with 0% quality to a level 1 with 20% quality. That doesn't work anymore for skill gems coming patch. Only for support gems. So everyone who wants quality on their main skill will have to use GCP.
I would like to interject to say, I don't know if people have just been not doing this, but to get quality on my main skill, I've just been picking up the like 4% gems that drop and doing the vendor recipe for GCPs. And usually by the time I have my whole build filled out, I have enough GCPs for all my main skills.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's very old tech, and haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, but that's definitely something that people should be utilizing going into this next league. I mean, especially if you use like I don't know whether NeverSync accommodated that change wisely already, but definitely you want to make sure that none of those low quality gems are hidden. Because what did you say, Balor, in your video? You expect GCP to be between 5 and 8 times more expensive than usual?
Somewhere between 4 and 8 times more expensive for the first week. Which means if we're used to buying 2 of them for 1 chaos, it's now going to be 1 of them for 4 chaos. I think it's only going to be the first week or so. It just means people's filters, especially like mine, that would hide gems with qualities below 14%, need to not do that.
You really think it's not going to be significantly different afterwards?
Because well, no, because I always end up with hundreds of GCPs. I think it'll still be different afterwards, like after the first week or so, but I think it's going to like settle down to probably somewhere around double its normal price. So instead of like 1-to-1, you might be paying 2-to-1.
2120s.
Yeah. So instead of 1-to-1, you might be paying 2-to-1, but it's going to be way more extreme in the first week-ish.
I just figured, so I've never done a setup where I have like a full Haku mod weapon swap where I'm leveling 6 gems and then I vendor them all for 20 quality and then level them again and then sell those or something. I've never done that. So just the flow of getting a 2020 main skill that you're using would be to level 2 copies of the gem so that when you vendor the one for the 20 quality, you still have a leveled gem, and then you level the gem again and then you swap them out. That always seemed clunkier to me than just picking up low quality gems and vendoring for 20 GCPs and then using it on my 20-0 gem.
The process normally is that you level 6 of your active gems in your off weapons and 1 in your main weapon. Like 1 in your actual gear, and you flip the 6 you're not using. And you're going immediately for a 2120. You hit them all to 2020 and you val them all. That's been the way I do it.
Depending on what the quality bonus was, I sometimes skipped the 20 quality and immediately went for a 21. And then after I got my 21, then I would try to get a 2120.
Yeah. I would sometimes do that too, depending on what the skill was. Like if it was a minion or a spell, I might just val them all at 20, going for 21 first, and then start flipping. But that was how I did it. This is not how I'm doing it anymore.
It seems better than my strategy, which is to deal with having a 20-0 for like the first 2 weeks and then just buy one.
Yeah.
Or use 20 GCPs on it and be sad when it doesn't vol correctly.
Nah. Yeah, but my first main damage output gem that hits 20 is always... I'd never flip that. I'd always... either quality and then corrupt, or directly corrupt, or be like, I don't want to lose a level, so I won't corrupt because I don't have the balls. But I never flip the first one. Depends though. Well, we've gone quite a bit longer than we initially expected because of our time shifting around. But I mean, I don't want to cut anyone off. If there's still things that you want to talk about, if you feel that there's still some things that we should bring up, then I'd ask you to bring them up now before we round things off.
Nah, I've mentioned everything that I want to talk about. I was just... People wanted to know about One Quackman a little bit because I mentioned it and teased it, and then people are like, well, now I have to have the POB. I talked about my League starter, which is going to be either Lightning Warp or Frostblink, and then I commented on everything that was going on, so I don't have anything else to bring up.
No, but that's great. Also good that you remind me the One Quackman will be in the comments and the description. I'll make sure to link it there again.
Yeah, so people don't have to like scour the VOD and read the Twitch chat and then manually type in the URL or something. Or technically you can go to my Twitch chat and do !build, but I won't force you to have a click on my channel or something.
You can probably enter One Quackman in Google and just click on your video and find the POB there. But that
well, no, because it's not out yet. That's the whole point of this rigmarole. Is so the footage is from Calandra League. I've had the footage forever. It would take like less than a week to put the footage together, record a script over it, and then have the video out. The time-consuming thing is the song. The song is very not done.
All right, yeah, I forgot.
So it will be months before the video for that character is out.
Okay.
And it has already been about a year.
Well, a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
So that's why I'm posting the POB, because people are like, you've been talking about it, and you mentioned it's still working after like 4 leagues. Yeah, here's the POB. Go ahead and try it. It sucks for mapping, but it's very good at Uber bosses.
The fact that it's still working, you think, has anything to do with the fact that you haven't released the video yet?
It's entirely possible.
You think it would be nuked?
I don't think things have been nuked in direct response to my videos except for Firestorm and Ice Storm. Those are the only 2 things that I think got nuked directly as a result of my actions. Everything else has been incidental. Oh, and the Ignite Prolif on the Elementalist node that no longer exists. I think I was responsible for that getting removed as well. Because that was what was crashing instances. It wasn't necessarily the double Fire and Ice Storm. It was the fact that each of those hits was also causing an Elemental Prolif, which was not attached to the monster. It was its own floating node in space. So every time I hit something, it would just spawn more invisible coordinates of things that are prolifing elements to enemies that don't exist, and it was just destroying the server. So they just removed that mod entirely from that node.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Well, I do hope that video comes out soon. For that
I've been taking singing lessons and recording the takes that I do during the singing lesson as a way to force me to make more progress on it.
You just reminded me I also have a song to finish. I made a remix of a track that a friend sent to me, and now he asked me that I send him the final mix. Oh, shit. Oh god, I have to do that before the league starts.
It's not as if I'm spending... It's not as if I'm spending every evening working on the song for like 6 months. It's like I do nothing for like 3 weeks, and then I do a bunch of work in like 5 hours, and then I do nothing for 3 weeks, and then I do another bunch of work for like 5 hours. So finding the time and the motivation.
Sounds like how I got to you through university.
Yep. Finding the time and the motivation to do it properly and have it all come together at the end. That's why it takes like a year.
So, do you see your own work ethic reflected in that, Snoo?
My own work ethic?
In what Joseph said. Joseph. I was just trying to get a neat transition.
The segue, yes. Yes.
A segue for you to have a chance to bring up another topic if you want to.
No. I actually see in here through back channels, it looks like Balor is
I'm getting close to having to run out the door.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm at the mercy of the podcast members here. I came late, so I'm in absolutely no position to bring up a last minute topic. You guys staying late for me, much appreciated, but no, I'm not going to push that envelope at all. I already owe Catmaster a big favor after this, so
I think you're more worried about it than we are.
Probably, but these sorts of things.
The favor that you owe me is coming back a couple weeks into the league and talking about all the things again.
That's right. We already planned that tentatively.
Yeah, we lined that up tentatively. Exactly. Well, in that case, thank you all for coming. Thanks for all the extended discussion. If I may plug or reference the Slippery Jim podcast name here, guys. We did a podcast already with Slippery Jim, Yosis, and Lighty that went for 7 hours where we talked about all the Affliction stuff. So if you're bored and you need more podcasts to listen to, then go to Slippery Jim 8's channel on YouTube and watch that VOD. Actually, the VOD is only 5 hours something, but we were sitting there for 7 hours total, I remember. Right. And once again, thank you guys for coming on and bringing all these knowledge-loaded statements and all that information for our followers and viewers. The next Fated Connections is going to be on Monday evening, where we discuss the first impressions of the league start weekend. It's going to be the same time as tonight. It's going to be 11 p.m. GMT. And we're going to be joined by the veteran Trixt and also our fellow streamer buddy Aphelion, who you guys have probably seen on various episodes before, so it should be all great vibes. And other than that, have a wonderful league start. Don't forget to prepare your item filters. Don't forget to preload the GGPK and get into queue before you're like me, the guy that has a stream up for like 2 hours before league launch, and then all of a sudden notices that the queue has already been open for half an hour, and then comes in at like 40,000 or something like that. And also don't log out when you're in. Don't log out, guys. I say it now, everyone's gonna log out anyway.
Actually, everybody in front of me, feel free to.
This is the advantage of not using racing strategies, is I don't log out to speed things up, so I don't get into the habit of doing it, so I don't do it on league start.
Well, either way, that's good advice actually. That everyone should take that to heart. Either way, guys, have a wonderful league start. Support the podcast by subscribing to the Twitch, to the Patreon, or becoming a YouTube member. And we'll see you all for the next one. Stay in touch via Twitter, YouTube community posts, or the Discords. We all have Discords. If you want to be more tightly knit with these people, go onto the Discords. And we'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye. This is the outro.
Bye.